Chapter 52-99. Lin Feng looked at Shui Yuexin and said, "Having a peerless beauty like Yuexin by my side is naturally something to be happy about. Why don't we have a drink tonight? Could it be that you only want to have a drink with the moon?" Shui Yuexin giggled. Her charming eyes were like silk. It was obvious that she was flirting with him. Lin Feng said, "Yes, I only want to have a drink with the moon. Apart from that, I have no other thoughts." Shui Yuexin said, "Then I'll accompany you to have a drink with the moon." Shui Yuexin took out a cup of wine and a few steaming dishes. She placed them on a stone table in the courtyard. Lin Feng said, "You're really well prepared." Shui Yuexin said, "Of course. I can't let you drink on an empty stomach, can I?" "These dishes are all delicious. Are they ordered by the Immortal Food Palace?" Lin Feng asked. "Of course not. These are some dishes that I personally prepared for you. Have a taste," Shui Yuexin said. She picked up a pair of chopsticks, picked up a dish, and brought it to Lin Feng's mouth. Having a peerless beauty personally feed someone was truly an emperor's pleasure. Lin Feng tasted a mouthful and said, "Not bad, not bad. You're pretty and your culinary skills are decent. A woman like you is really rare." "Thank you for your praise, young master." Shui Yuexin's pretty face blushed. She then poured a cup of wine for Lin Feng. Lin Feng downed it in one gulp. "Have you gotten used to life in the city of Sin?" Lin Feng asked. "It's fine. It's just that you're often not in Sin City. When I miss you, I can't see you, so I can't help but feel a little disappointed." Shui Yuexin said. If someone else had heard a peerless beauty like Shui Yuexin say something like that, they would have been overjoyed. However, Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. Back then, he and Shui Yuexin had already become strangers, even though Shui Yuexin had found him in the city of Sin. However, Lin Feng had no intention of continuing his relationship with Shui Yuexin. If it wasn't for Shui Yuexin's tear-stained face, Lin Feng didn't intend to let Shui Yuexin stay. Lin Feng was a soft-hearted man. He couldn't bear to see a woman cry. Lin Feng said, "You can make friends with some people in Sin City. It's not good if you don't make friends when you're living in a new place. Now, there's an office of the All-Knowing Pavilion in Sin City. If you want to return to work there, I can give them a call. That way, you'll be able to work there again." Shui Yuexin said, "I don't have any plans to return to the Bai Shao Pavilion for now. I just want to stay by your side and serve you well." Shui Yuexin was getting bolder and bolder. After saying that, Zhang Wujishi went directly to Lin Feng's side and sat on Lin Feng's lap. She even wrapped her arms around Lin Feng's neck. "Every second of the night is worth 1,000 gold. Let's not waste this beautiful scenery, okay?" Shui Yuexin's seductive voice sounded. Her breath smelled like orchids. Her fragrance filled the air. It was simply intoxicating. "Take your hands off me." However, at that moment, a voice sounded from Lin Feng's body. When he heard the voice, Lin Feng looked happy at first, but then he had a strange expression on his face. Who was that voice? Lin Feng obviously knew what was going on. What was she trying to do? What's that voice? Shui Yuexin jumped in fright. She was bewildered. "Hurry up and get up. Is this where you should sit?" That voice sounded again. Shui Yuexin didn't get up. She said, "I'll sit if I want to. What can you do about it?" The voice said, "*TCH, do you know who I am? I'm a legendary evil spirit. Anyone who's targeted by me won't have a good ending, especially those women. After being targeted by me, the life energy in their bodies will gradually be absorbed by me. Then, those women will start to age quickly. Not long after, they'll become uglier than ghosts. At that time, not to mention men liking these women, men won't even look at them. I'll give you a chance now. Continue to sit or hurry up and get up. The words spoken by this voice were too lethal to women. Which woman didn't like to be beautiful? Especially beautiful women. What they were most afraid of was hearing about their bodies being out of shape, becoming old and ugly, and their skin becoming unsightly. Therefore, when Shui Yuexin heard the threat of becoming old and ugly, she was terrified. She didn't dare to continue sitting on Lin Feng's lap. She quickly stood up. "Young master, what's that talking? Is it really a female ghost?" Shui Yuexin looked at Lin Feng and asked. She was skeptical about it. Lin Feng said, "It's really a female ghost, and one with a bad temper." Shui Yuexin said, "Why don't I find someone to subdue this female ghost?" Lin Feng said, "There's no need to go through so much trouble. This female ghost has a good relationship with me. How about this? You go back first. I'll have a good talk with this female ghost and tell her not to come out and scare people casually in the future." "All right then, I'll go back first," Shui Yuexin said. "All right." Lin Feng nodded. Shui Yuexin left Lin Feng's residence. The trace of fear on her face immediately disappeared. Her eyes became cold. In her eyes, there was even a burst of coldness. "Bitch, you ruined my plans. Don't fall into my hands. Otherwise, I'll make you suffer a fate worse than death." After Shui Yuexin left, a light flashed. Lung Zishi flew out. She said sarcastically, "You're really in the mood doing something bad with a vixen here, and I even bumped into you. How embarrassing." Lin Feng said, "Look at what you're saying. What do you mean by doing something bad?" Lung Zishi said, "It's just not doing something good. If I didn't stop you in time, wouldn't you have carried her to her room?" Lin Feng laughed bitterly. Lung Zishi's personality was as fiery as ever. Her words were as fiery as ever. She had nothing to be embarrassed about. Lin Feng said, "You're thinking too much. I'm a gentleman." "Gentleman my ass," Lung Zishi said, hatefully. She thought about how Lin Feng had secretly kissed her before she woke up. Lung Zishi felt like gnashing her teeth. Actually, Lung Zishi had already woken up at that time, but she had been unconscious for too long. Although she had woken up, her bodily functions had not recovered, and she could not move or speak. She had to wait for a few days before she could gradually regain her mobility. Of course, although she was gnashing her teeth in hatred. However, she had been kissed by Lin Feng. Lung Zishi did not plan to talk about it openly. If she said it out loud, who knew what would happen? Lung Zishi sat on the stone bench and decided to turn her grief into appetite. She picked up her chopsticks and started eating. She ate and drank at the same time. She could be described as wolfing down the food. "Can you eat slower? No one is fighting with you," Lin Feng said helplessly. "I'm hungry. Do you know how long it's been since I last ate? This is not enough for me. Go get someone to make some more for me." Lung Zishi spoke vaguely as she ate. She did not look like a lady at all. However, this was the real Lung Zishi. In fact, Lin Feng quite liked Lung Zishi's personality. Lin Feng ordered someone to go to the Immortal Food Hall to order a table of delicacies for Lung Zishi. Soon, the people from the Immortal Food Hall delivered the delicacies. Lung Zishi, on the other hand, swept everything away. After eating, she patted her stomach and said, "I'm so full." "How can you not be full after eating so much?" Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter. Lung Zishi stood up and ignored Lin Feng. She said, "You can pack up these things. I'm going to take a nap." After saying that, she twisted her waist and swayed her, but as she walked towards her room, Yi Xian couldn't help but mutter to himself. Lung Zishi's figure was really top-notch. Her face was also beautiful. She was definitely a top-notch beauty. Chapter 5300. It was more difficult to repair the stone armor. Dozens of the top blacksmiths in the blacksmith pavilion participated in the repair of the stone armor. The group of top blacksmiths brainstormed and finally found a way to repair the stone armor. In the end, these top blacksmiths successfully repaired Lin Feng's stone armor. Of course, this kind of repair was not 100% perfect. It was about 80% repaired, which was similar to Lin Feng's guess. Lin Feng was already very happy to be able to repair it to 80%. After all, it was too difficult to repair the stone armor completely after it was damaged. After these people repaired the stone armor, Lin Feng took out the broken sun-shooting divine arrow. Then, he handed it to the blacksmith pavilion. In addition to the broken arrow, Lin Feng also gave some top-quality meteorites and the complete array diagram to the blacksmith pavilion. The reason why he didn't take out the broken arrow and stone armor was because he was worried that these people would be distracted. It was fine if the materials were damaged, but he was afraid that they would damage his magic treasure. Lin Feng asked, and the blacksmith pavilion said that it would take about 10 days to repair the broken arrow. This time was much shorter than Lin Feng expected. Lin Feng left the blacksmith pavilion and went to Pei Yingjun's place. Ever since Lin Feng came back, Pei Yingjun had been working overtime to refine the 9 heavenly thunder source pearls. Now, Pei Yingjun had refined about 1,309 heavenly thunder source pearls, including the 1,009 heavenly thunder source pearls that he gave to Lin Feng. All the 9 heavenly lightning source pearls added up to a total of 2,300 pearls. Lin Feng would not leave for the time being. So Pei Yingjun should be able to refine another batch of 9 heavenly thunder source pearls in the next period of time. If he could bring a few thousand 9 heavenly thunder source pearls with him, it was also a great guarantee for his own safety. After Lung Zishi woke up, she immediately became lively. When she saw Little Sun, Lung Zishi seemed to like Little Sun very much. She always liked to reach out and pinch Little Sun's face. Little Sun felt wronged. In his young heart, he must have thought that this big sister in front of him was an indecent person. Lung Zishi knew that Lin Feng was planning to go to the barren sky ridge. Lung Zishi was someone who could not stay idle. Therefore, when he heard that Lin Feng was going to the barren sky ridge, he immediately became interested. She wanted to go to the barren sky ridge with Lin Feng. Lin Feng naturally didn't want to bring Lung Zishi along, mainly because the desolate sky ridge was too dangerous. If it was somewhere else, bringing Lung Zishi along would not be a big deal. However, danger lurked everywhere in the barren heaven ridge. Lin Feng didn't know if he could take care of himself after entering. How could she have the energy to take care of Lung Zishi? Of course, Lin Feng admitted that Lung Zishi had some powerful means and powerful magic treasures. But so what? The desolate sky ridge was not a place that could be easily entered even if one had powerful techniques and magic treasures. Lung Zishi kept pestering Lin Feng. This made Lin Feng feel very helpless. Lin Feng could only agree verbally. Lin Feng thought to himself, when it was time to leave, he would choose to do it in the middle of the night. Then he would quietly leave. This way, Lung Zishi would not know. When she woke up, he would have already left. After making up his mind, Lin Feng immediately smiled. Lung Zishi said, "Your smile is too evil. What are you planning?" Lin Feng said, "I'm thinking about when we should consummate our marriage. How about tonight? When we pass the imperial examination, consummating our marriage is definitely the happiest moment in life." Die. Lung Zishi took out her mace and chased after Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled wryly. Even though that little girl was extremely beautiful, she was still a beauty. However, her temper was not something that could be tamed by ordinary people. In the next few days, Shui Yuexin came to find Lin Feng a few times. Shui Yuexin seemed to want to give herself to Lin Feng. However, every time Shui Yuexin came, Long Zishi would appear. Shui Yuexin could only give up. Shui Yuexin hated Lung Zishi to the core. However, on the surface, she still appeared to be amiable. I feel that there's something wrong with that woman. On this day, after Shui Yuexin left, Lung Zishi said. Lin Feng slightly raised his eyebrows and said, "You should worry about yourself." "What about me?" Lung Zishi asked. "Now, many people are saying that you're a scourge of Sin City. You're causing trouble outside all day," Lin Feng said. Lung Zishi retorted, "This is nonsense. This is slander. I'm an extremely kind person. I won't take the initiative to cause trouble. At most, I'll bully the weak." After hearing Lung Zishi's words, Lin Feng almost fell to the ground. Lung Zishi did not say much on this topic. She thought of Lin Feng's calm expression when she said that there was something wrong with Shui Yuexin. Shui Yuexin said, You didn't look surprised at all. Did you suspect that woman long ago?" Lin Feng said, "It's not that I suspected her long ago, but this time I felt that there was something wrong with her. However, I can't tell what exactly is wrong." "Then why didn't you expose her?" Lung Zishi asked. Then she said, "Could it be that you want to make the act real? You want to eat her up first before making a plan? Men are indeed animals who think with their lower bodies." Lin Feng rolled his eyes and said, "Don't make wild guesses about me. I didn't expose her because I don't have any evidence. So I have to find some evidence or wait for her to reveal some clues." "Humph, so you're blaming me for ruining your plan?" Lung Zishi snorted and said. Lin Feng could only laugh bitterly. When a woman was unreasonable, she could turn white into black. Being unreasonable seemed to be something that every woman was extremely good at. Of course, Lung Zishi was the same. Lin Feng said, "I don't blame you. It's getting late. Go back and rest." Lung Zishi said, "I promise when that woman comes looking for you again, I definitely won't appear." After saying that, Lung Zishi twisted her waist and left. In the next few days, Shui Yuexin did not come looking for Lin Feng again. She was probably worried that Lung Zishi would ruin her plan. So he simply chose to temporarily lie low. There was news from the weapon refining pavilion that the broken arrow had been repaired. Only 8 days had passed. It was actually 2 days shorter than the estimated time of the weapon refining pavilion. When Lin Feng arrived at the weapon refining pavilion, he saw the repaired sun-shooting god arrow. Of course, because it was a broken arrow. So, even if it was reconnected, there were still some differences from the past. But Lin Feng felt that this difference shouldn't be too big. After all, in order to repair the broken arrow, Lin Feng used the resources of dozens of top-notch weapon refiner. The materials used were all top-notch materials, and there was also a perfect array blueprint. Therefore, Lin Feng felt that the repaired sun-shooting god arrow should be able to reach about 90% of its peak power. Lin Feng naturally did not expect to be able to repair at 100%. He could repair about 90%. Lin Feng was actually already satisfied. Lin Feng then went to Pei Yingjun's place. Pei Yingjun had just refined 809 Heaven Thunder Source Pearls, and all of them were taken away by Lin Feng, including the 2,309 Heaven Thunder Source Pearls that Lin Feng had obtained before. Lin Feng now had a total of 3,109 Heaven Thunder Source Pearls. So many 9 Heaven Thunder Source Pearls. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website, Chapter 5301. After leaving the tool forging pavilion, Lin Feng planned to leave for the barren sky ridge that night. Lin Feng met with Du Zhu and the evil dominator's divine ancestor. He told them that he would be leaving that night and asked them to wait for him outside the city. Du Zhu and the evil dominator's divine ancestor knew about Lin Feng's plan. They did not linger and left the ancient city early. They liked to follow Lin Feng. Although they might encounter danger by Lin Feng's side, they could also encounter fortuitous encounters. If they wanted to survive in this chaotic world, they could not be afraid of encountering danger. If they were afraid of encountering danger, they would not be able to survive in this chaotic world. Late at night, Lin Feng left the room without making a sound. After leaving the city of Sin, he met up with Du Zhu and the evil dominator's divine ancestor outside the city. This is your territory. Do you need to be so sneaky when leaving the city? Du Zhu was speechless. Lin Feng sighed and said, I don't want to do this either, but what can I do? If that little girl, Lung Zixi, is alerted, she will definitely chase after us. Du Zhu shrunk his neck and said through gritted teeth, Lung Zixi is not a good person. The reason why the poison ancestor said Lung Zi she wasn't a good person was because Lung Zi she had taught the poison ancestor a lesson. Du Zhu was someone who liked to show off. Lung Zixi was also someone who could not stay still and liked to tease others. So it was normal for the two of them to have a conflict. Du Zhu originally thought that Lung Zixi was Lin Feng's woman. Actually, Lung Zixi was not Lin Feng's woman yet. Of course, there was still some ambiguity between them. So he did not plan to fight with Lung Zixi. However, Lung Zixi did not plan to let Du Zhu go. Lung Zixi's personality. She was a violent maniac. Then, he grabbed Du Zhu and beat him up. Poor Du Zhu was taught a lesson by Lung Zixi in front of everyone. This matter left Du Zhu depressed for a few days. Du Zhu really didn't want to set off with Lung Zixi because of what had happened before. Lung Zixi was in Du Zhu's heart. Naturally, he was not a good person. Lin Feng said, Let's go, let's not waste any more time. Du Zhu and Evil Dominator nodded. The three of them quickly left. At noon the next day, when they were passing through a forest, Lin Feng saw two legs dangling from the trunk of a big tree in front of him. Then, those two legs. It kept swaying. Lin Feng felt a little helpless when he saw the two dangling legs. That pair of slender and beautiful legs were too familiar. Who else could it be but Lung Zixi? Lin Feng raised his head and looked up. Sure enough, he saw an incomparably familiar face. Du Zhu also saw Lung Zixi, and he couldn't help but cover his face. He had a helpless expression on his face. Then he wailed and said, You're really haunting me. Lung Zixi jumped down from the tree. She looked at Lin Feng with a smile and said, My big brother Lin, what are you doing out here? Ahem, I'm out for a walk. Lin Feng coughed dryly and said, Lung Zixi's beautiful face, which was originally full of smiles, suddenly became fierce. Her face changed faster than flipping a book. This was probably referring to Lung Zixi. Lung Zixi said, Who are you trying to fool? Are you trying to ditch me and go to the desolate heaven ridge by yourself? Du Zhu said, Not by myself. The three of us are going together. Lung Zixi glared fiercely at Du Zhu, then looked at Lin Feng and said, You're bringing that trash Du Zhu instead of me? What's the meaning of this? Du Zhu felt his gums start to hurt. What did she mean by bringing that trash Du Zhu along? Since when had he become trash? Du Zhu had the urge to slap Lung Zixi until she fainted. Lin Feng said, Du Zhu is different from the evil dominator's sacred ancestor. He's a special life form with an almost indestructible body. Moreover, he's been in many death traps, so he has a better understanding of the various dangers. Entering a death trap will allow him to avoid as many dangers as possible. But you're different. You've only just recovered, and you're not familiar with the death traps. It'll be more dangerous if I bring you there. To put it bluntly, Duzu and the evil dominator's sacred ancestor probably won't die because of their special bodies, but you won't. Lin Feng, how dare you look down on me? Lung Zi, she was angry. Lin Feng said, I'm not looking down on you. I'm just thinking about your safety. Be obedient and go back to Sin City. I'm not going back. I can't stand these restrictions, so I ran away. Lung Zi, she said, didn't you run to the undying world because you were being chased? Lin Feng asked, puzzled. Lung Zishi rolled her eyes and said, what I mean is that in the past, I was younger than I am now. Because I couldn't stand some restrictions, I ran out of my family's sphere of influence to make my own way. Lin Feng was speechless. You're really audacious, said Lin Feng. Lung Zi, she said, if you don't bring me, I'll go by myself. Lin Feng couldn't help but feel helpless. How could he let Lung Zi she go by herself? If Lung Zi she went by herself, who knew what kind of dangerous things would happen? If she stayed by his side, there would at least be someone to take care of her, right? Lin Feng said, if you insist on going, then come with us. But first, when we reach the desolate sky ridge, you have to listen to my orders. Of course, I'm very obedient, Lung Zi, she said, hugging Lin Feng's arm when she heard Lin Feng agree. She giggled. It was a stark contrast to the fierce look he had before. Lung Zishi was really a goddess and a psycho at the same time. Chapter 53:02 Forsaken Heaven Region. It was a famous region in the Undying Realm. The main reason was because the Forsaken Heaven region had the extremely dangerous Forsaken Heaven Ridge. A place of death was not necessarily a place of death. However, many of the Forsaken Heaven region were places of death. The Forsaken Heaven region was far more terrifying than an ordinary Forsaken Heaven region. Lin Feng and the others arrived at the Forsaken Heaven city. They were still more than 10 days away from the Forsaken Heaven Ridge. Lin Feng and the others had been traveling for more than 4 months, so they needed to rest. Moreover, they had to adjust their condition. This was extremely important for entering the Forsaken Heaven Ridge. If they entered in a bad condition, who knew what kind of terrifying things would happen? The Forsaken Heaven City was very lively, mainly because many people would choose to watch the Forsaken Heaven Ridge from afar. Then, they would feel the unique charm of the Forsaken Heaven Ridge. It was precisely because of this that cultivators who came to watch the Forsaken Heaven Ridge would often choose to rest in the Forsaken Heaven City. Lin Feng and the others found a place to stay. They rested for a while. It was already night time. Lung Zishi pulled Lin Feng and the others out. She was someone who could not stay idle. Since she had come to a new ancient city, she naturally wanted to take a good look. Moreover, Lung Zishi was also a foodie and liked all kinds of delicacies. She naturally wanted to taste the delicacies of the Forsaken Heaven City first. At night, the Forsaken Heaven City was also incomparably lively. People came and went, and there were cultivators everywhere. There seemed to be a lot of entertainment in the Forsaken Heaven City. For example, there were many brothel boats in the river in the inner city. There were also many brothels on both sides of the street. There were fewer places to eat. Lung Zishi scolded. There are no good people in this ancient city, especially those who do business. They can invest in anything, but there are actually so many people investing in brothels. How shameless! Lin Feng said, every place has its own customs. I guess this is the only custom here. Moreover, many brothels are not as filthy as you think. So, you've been to a lot of brothels? You are indeed a bad person. Lung Zishi snorted. Lin Feng immediately laughed bitterly. Why was he being dragged into this again? Lung Zi, she wanted to find a high-end place to taste the delicacies. However, there were fewer restaurants, and the few that she went to were overcrowded. Thus, Lung Zi she walked towards a place called Immortal Grade House. Taste it meant to taste. Immortal didn't mean immortal ingredients or immortal food, but immortal fairies. Immortal Pavilion meant that this place was a pavilion for tasting fairies. Therefore, this was not a restaurant. It was a brothel. Miss, we only serve male guests here. We don't serve female guests. A beautiful woman hurriedly said when she saw Lung Zishi rushing over. Lung Zishi pinched the woman's chin and said, "Do you think every woman likes men?" Hearing Lung Zishi's words, the beautiful woman immediately understood what was going on. She smiled coquettishly and said, I didn't expect this young lady to like this. Let's go in." At this time, Lin Feng, Du Zhu, and the heretical sovereign sacred ancestor also came in. They naturally heard Lung Zishi's words. The three of them were speechless. Lung Zishi's character. She was really valiant. There was nothing that she didn't dare to say. The beautiful woman brought the four of them to a private room. Lung Zi, she said, "We're not used to the food here. Go to the best restaurant and get the best chef to prepare the best food and send it over." After saying that, Lung Zi, she took out over 100 immortal stones and threw them on the ground. When the beautiful woman saw the stones, she smiled happily and quickly put them away. Then she said, "We'll definitely satisfy this young lady. What kind of girls do you want? Is there even a need to ask? We'll take the prettiest girls. Of course, it'll be best if they're beautiful and bold. We'll definitely have fun. If they're stubborn, we won't take them no matter how pretty they are." Lung Zi, she said. "Understood, understood." The beautiful woman hurriedly replied. Lin Feng was speechless. He couldn't let Lung Zi she continue to cause trouble like this. Lin Feng said, "Don't listen to her nonsense. How about this? Find us some singers, dancers, and musicians." The beautiful woman glanced at Lung Zi. Lung Zi, she said, "Let's do as this guy says." The beautiful woman nodded and left. Lung Zi, she said, "Could it be that you can't relax because I'm here? Why don't I leave and make room for you?" Lin Feng said, "If you continue to cause trouble, I'll spank you until your butt blossoms." Lung Zi, she suddenly felt a strange sensation when she thought about how she had been spanked by Lin Feng in the past. She glared fiercely at Lin Feng. After that, she didn't say anything else. Not long after, the beautiful singers, dancers, and musicians arrived and performed for Lin Feng and the others. Delicacies were also quickly served. Lung Zi, she had come here because she couldn't find a place to eat outside, so she had come up with this idea. Moreover, she could get a group of beautiful girls to perform. Naturally, she was quite satisfied. Of course, this would cost a lot. But Lung Zi, she didn't care. After all, she could always ask Lin Feng for more money. Late at night, they returned together. Over the next few days, Lin Feng, Du Zhu, and the heretic dominator rested and recovered. Lung Zi, she, on the other hand, liked to go outside. One day when she returned, she said mysteriously, "I heard a big piece of news." "You want to know?" "What news?" Lin Feng looked at Lung Zi in surprise. "It's about Heavenly Emperor Huang." Lung Zi, she said, "Who is Heavenly Emperor Huang?" Lin Feng couldn't help but feel even more puzzled. Judging from the name, he seemed to be an amazing person. However, Lin Feng didn't know who this person was. "You haven't even heard of Heavenly Emperor Huang? You're really ignorant." Lung Zi, she looked at Lin Feng with disdain. "Isn't it normal not to know Heavenly Emperor Huang?" Lin Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes. Lung Zi, she said, "Heavenly Emperor Huang is an amazing person. The Forsaken Heaven City wherein was built by him." Lin Feng was shocked. Forsaken Heaven City had existed since the ancient Chaos era. The ancient chaos era was an extremely chaotic era. So, Forsaken Heaven City was built by Heavenly Emperor Huang. In that case, this Heavenly Emperor Huang that Leng Zishi was talking about was definitely an extremely terrifying existence. End of chapter. Chapter 5303. What did you hear? Lin Feng asked curiously. It's said that Heavenly Emperor Huang is still alive. Leng Zishi said. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He asked, what kind of person is Heavenly Emperor Huang? Rumor has it that he once joined forces with Great Emperor Ancient Chaos to suppress the dark chaos of the Ancient Chaos era. His strength has reached the peak of perfection, and he's unimaginably terrifying. Leng Zishi said, how does he compare to those ancient holy emperors, ancient demon gods, and ancient devil emperors? Lin Feng asked curiously. He's even a little stronger than them. Leng Zishi said. Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath. You're joking, right? Of course I'm not joking. Leng Zishi said. In the beginning, Heavenly Emperor Huang might have been similar to those existences you're talking about. But he joined hands with the Ancient Chaos Great Emperor to suppress the Dark Chaos Great Emperor. A cultivator, like him, must have received unimaginable benefits. Therefore, he must have reached a higher level of enlightenment. He must have surpassed the holy emperors and ancient bestial gods. When Lin Feng heard Leng Zishi, he couldn't help but frown. What Leng Zishi said was probably true. After all, suppressing the chaos in the dark world was indeed a great contribution. He had made such a meritorious contribution. It was normal for one's cultivation to reach a higher level of enlightenment. What happened after that? Lin Feng asked curiously. Leng Zishi continued. Later on, it was said that Huang Tian Emperor entered the barren sky ridge and died. Huang Tian Emperor was a terrifying existence, and his death in the barren sky ridge caused a huge commotion. Countless people wanted to enter the barren sky ridge to search for Huang Tian Emperor's legacy. You can imagine how great the rewards would be if you could find it. It's just that no one succeeded. But there's no lack of people in this world who aren't afraid of death. A few years ago, someone entered the barren sky ridge and brought back a huge piece of news. That piece of news is that Heavenly Emperor Huang might still be alive. How does he know that Heavenly Emperor Huang isn't dead? Did he find any evidence? Or did he meet Heavenly Emperor Huang? Lin Feng asked. I don't know about that. It is said that after the cultivator escaped, he fell under the control of some peak-level forces. Due to that, the matter was sealed off for a few years. Some time ago, the cultivator managed to escape and spread the news. However, it seems that the cultivator was captured by the cultivators from those great forces. Leng Zishi said. Du Zhu said, those great powers have probably already started exploring the barren sky ridge. Lin Feng said, going in is suicide. A place like the barren sky ridge isn't a place you can explore as you please. In the next few days, Lin Feng paid attention to some of the developments outside. Although the cultivator was taken away again, he did spread some shocking news. However, those who knew the news were all under the control of the major forces. The news that spread outside was only the news that Heavenly Emperor Huang was still alive. However, without any evidence, it was hard for people to believe the authenticity of such news. Therefore, after a few days, the news that Heavenly Emperor Huang was still alive gradually died down. Lin Feng and the others went to the all-knowing pavilion to gather information. The person who received Lin Feng and the others was an elder of the all-knowing pavilion. When the elder heard Lin Feng ask about Heavenly Emperor Huang, he didn't tell Lin Feng anything. Instead, he told Lin Feng that he didn't know the specifics. Lin Feng guessed the all-knowing pavilion had probably been warned by some great powers. Therefore, they wouldn't sell the information they had. Lin Feng looked at the elder and asked, "How much does an elder earn per month from the all-knowing pavilion?" The elder replied, "About 40,000 immortal stones." 40,000 immortal stones might seem like a lot, but if you think about it carefully, you need a portion for your own cultivation. If you have a family, it's not a small expense. In addition, if you come across something you want to buy, the expenses will probably be even higher. 40,000 immortal stones a month won't be enough for you to live a luxurious life. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng flicked his finger. A river of immortal stones flew out. "Here are 10 million immortal stones. I'm giving them to you, elder. You can keep them for your own use. There's no need to hand them over to the all-knowing pavilion. As for whether you want them or not, that's up to you." Lin Feng smiled. After seeing the 10 million immortal stones, the elder's face immediately became gloomy. In the end, the huge profit still occupied his heart. It was a threat to the great powers. He tossed it to the back of his mind. He put the 10 million immortal stones away. Then he said, "What do you want to ask, young master? How did that person know that Heavenly Emperor Huang is still alive?" Lin Feng asked. "It's said that he saw a great battle in the depths of the desolate heaven ridge, and the person in the battle called himself Heavenly Emperor Huang." The elder of the all-knowing pavilion said, "Oh, there's such a thing?" Lin Feng couldn't help but feel shocked. He then asked, "Who was the cultivator who fought against Heavenly Emperor Huang?" The elder said, "It was a very tall and sturdy man who looked like a savage." "What?" Lin Feng suddenly stood up. "What's wrong? Do you know that savage?" Lung Zixi asked in astonishment. She rarely saw Lin Feng react so strongly. In her impression, this was the first time. Lin Feng nodded. He didn't explain his relationship with the savage. Lin Feng asked, "Do you know what happened after that?" The elder said, "It's said that Heavenly Emperor Huang was defeated." Lin Feng was shocked. Senior Savage. Was he that powerful? Even a terrifying existence like Heavenly Emperor Huang wasn't a match for him. Seriously, it was shocking. What happened after that? Lin Feng asked. "I'm not sure about that," the elder of the all-knowing pavilion said. Lin Feng couldn't help but ponder. Why was Senior Savage looking for Heavenly Emperor Huang? It had to be something important, right? In fact, Lin Feng already knew why Senior Savage had entered the time-reversed world, but Lin Feng now suspected that Senior Savage's entry had something to do with Heavenly Emperor Huang. Senior Savage was his Tao protector. He still had some things left behind by his ancestor, Lin Qi. In the past, his cultivation hadn't been strong enough, so Senior Savage had helped him keep those things safe. Now that his cultivation had increased, he could obtain those things. Therefore, Lin Feng was very eager to meet Senior Savage. Could he have a chat with Heavenly Emperor Huang and ask him to send him into the world where time was reversed as well? End of chapter. Chapter 5304. Of course, these were just Lin Feng's guesses for now. Lin Feng didn't know if Heavenly Emperor Huang could really send people into a world where time was reversed. As for whether or not Senior Savage had entered the world through Heavenly Emperor Huang, that was Lin Feng's guess. However, Lin Feng had a strong feeling. He felt that there was a high chance that his guess was correct. After Lin Feng and the others left the all-seeing pavilion, they returned to their residences. Lin Feng planned to observe for a few more days to see if anything special would happen. Not long after, there was news. A peerless expert had appeared, barged into the place where the large factions had imprisoned that cultivator, and kidnapped him. When this rumor spread, many people were shocked. Originally, the popularity of Heavenly Emperor Huang had dropped significantly. But now, the news had risen again. This was because everyone realized that this matter might not be as simple as it seemed. Heavenly Emperor Huang dominated the world and ruled over 10 directions. He was a peerless and invincible existence. Now that news of Heavenly Emperor Huang has spread, some large factions are acting strangely. This is enough to explain a lot of things. A cultivator said, "Perhaps Heavenly Emperor Huang really isn't dead." Another cultivator said, "That is indeed a possibility." Many people agreed with this statement. However, there were also some people who felt that Heavenly Emperor Huang was definitely dead. The cultivator, who had been captured by the large factions, hadn't told the truth. Perhaps he knew where Heavenly Emperor Huang had fallen. After the cultivator was taken away, the major factions were furious. As a result, they sent out many cultivators to search for the cultivator's whereabouts. However, they didn't find any useful information. A few days later, a shocking piece of news spread. It was said that Heavenly Emperor Huang's descendant had appeared. Heavenly Emperor Huang's descendant would head to the desolate Heaven Ridge to search for him. This matter caused a huge uproar. Didn't Heavenly Emperor Huang have no descendants a long time ago? A cultivator said, "Rumor has it that desolate Heaven Emperor was one of the 9 heavenly emperors. I don't know which generation he was from. Even though he was extremely powerful, several of his sons died in battle during the dark turmoil. Although he quelled the dark turmoil, he didn't have any more children. Of course, he still had some clansmen, but their bloodlines weren't particularly strong. In the end, his clan gradually perished. If that's the case, it's very likely that he's an imposter." A cultivator sneered. What was he trying to do by pretending to be a descendant of Heavenly Emperor Huang? It's definitely a fake. A cultivator said. Following that, there was another piece of news. 3 days later, the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang would arrive at the Forsaken Heaven City. The imposter actually dared to enter the Forsaken Heaven City? Aren't they afraid of being exposed? Someone said. Many cultivators were discussing this matter. The entire Forsaken Heaven City was in an uproar because Heavenly Emperor Huang was still alive and his descendants were about to arrive. Lin Feng and the rest were not in a hurry to leave the Forsaken Heaven City. They planned to observe the situation first. 3 days later, more than 10 cultivators flew over from afar. Leading them was a white-haired old man. Forsaken Heaven City. The last time I set foot here, it was when the ancient chaos ended. The white-haired old man sighed. Beside the old man was a very pretty young man who was supporting the old man. If one observed carefully, one would be able to tell that the overly pretty young man was actually a young woman disguised as a man. "Ancestor, what happened back then? Why did my clan have to leave the Forsaken Heaven City?" The young woman asked. "Sigh." The old man sighed and said, "At that time, I was only a young man of 15 or 16 years old. There were many things that I did not understand, but I vaguely heard my elders talk about the situation back then. It was said that the darkness was not extinguished, so my clan had to flee." "What happened after that?" the young woman asked. "Most of them died. Only a dozen or so clansmen survived." The old man said, "Was it because ancestor Heavenly Emperor Huang died that the calamity that followed caused the extermination of your clan?" the young woman asked. "Yes." The old man nodded. The young woman said, "I will definitely be like ancestor Huang, Heavenly Emperor, and become a supreme expert. At that time, if anyone dares to threaten my clan, I will kill them until they tremble in fear and their entire clan begs for mercy." The old man said, "Take your time. Don't be anxious. You will definitely be able to do it in the future." The old man's evaluation of the young woman was simply too high. He wondered who this young woman was. The group entered the Forsaken Heaven City. "Ancestor, let's go eat something." The young woman said. All right. The old man nodded. The group found a restaurant. Since all the private rooms were full, they could only sit in the main hall. A dozen or so people gathered around a table and ordered some food. Aren't the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang coming today? It's already afternoon, but they're still not here. Are they not coming? A diner asked. What descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang? They died a long time ago. I don't know where this group of impostors came from. It's said that the experts of the 7 great powers of the Forsaken Heaven region are waiting for these impostors. A cultivator suddenly said, Why are the 7 great powers of the Forsaken Heaven region waiting for them? Even if these people pretend to be the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang, they have nothing to do with the 7 great powers of the Forsaken Heaven region. Another cultivator said. The cultivator said, because the cultivators who came out of the Forsaken Heaven Ridge were kidnapped. The 7 great powers of the Forsaken Heaven region suspect that they were kidnapped by a group of people who pretended to be the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang. No wonder those fellows are hiding like tortoises, not daring to show themselves. They are afraid of the experts of the 7 great powers of the Forsaken Heaven region. Someone sighed. Humph, what 7 great powers of the Forsaken Heaven region? What a joke. They're just a mediocre power. A cold laugh suddenly rang out. The main hall, which had been somewhat lively, became completely silent. Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice. Then they saw. The one who spoke was actually an incomparably handsome young man. That handsome young man was the young woman who had disguised herself as a man. However, she had disguised herself very well and had even altered her voice, so no one would have guessed that she was actually a young woman in disguise. Someone said, Kid, do you know that trouble comes from the mouth? Don't say things you shouldn't say. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died. The young woman sneered and said, There's nothing I can't say. Even if those mediocre cultivators were here, I would still dare to say the same. What an arrogant kid. Who gave you the guts to look down on the 7 great powers of the Forsaken Heaven region? A cold laugh came from upstairs. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version. Chapter 5305. It's Zhang Longming and the others. I'm afraid I've gotten myself into big trouble this time around. The people from the 7 great powers of the Forsaken Heaven region aren't kind-hearted people. Offending them won't end well. Some of the diners started to discuss animatedly. They looked at the young girl's table with pity. As far as they were concerned, offending the people from the 7 major forces was simply a path to death. Are you guys from the 7 major powers? Just by looking at you, I can tell how pathetic the 7 major powers are. The young girl said sarcastically. She had an arrogant look on her face. This was a sense of superiority that came from her bones. This little girl seems to be around 17 or 18 years old. Lin Feng said. She's not a guy. Duzu muttered. She's disguised as a guy. Lin Feng said. It turned out that Lin Feng and the others were also eating here. They were sitting in the main hall looking like they were watching a show. Lung Zishi said, She's even more arrogant than me. What's there to be arrogant about? She's so young. How much cultivation can she have? Lin Feng said, Don't underestimate this little girl. I feel that she's not simple. Let's just wait and see. When Lung Zishi heard Lin Feng compliment the girl, she wasn't convinced, but she didn't say anything. She just wanted to see what would happen next. You dare to humiliate us? We'll kill you today. A cultivator said coldly. The cultivator who spoke was Zhang Longming. He was at the peak of the Earth immortal realm. Next, Zhang Longming flew down from the 2nd floor. The others also flew down to the 1st floor. It seemed that the cultivators from the 7 major powers were about to attack. These people could do whatever they wanted in the Forsaken Heaven region. Therefore, they would not be at a disadvantage. Who would dare to offend them? They would definitely use cruel methods to take revenge. Seeing those people fly down, the young girl stretched out her right hand and tapped lightly in the air. The group seemed to have lost their ability to fly. They all fell to the ground. They were as pathetic as they could be. "What are you doing?" "Snatching food to eat." "What a pitiful bunch." "Come, I'll reward you with something to eat." The girl threw a plate of pastries to the group of people. The corners of the cultivators' mouths twitched violently. Wasn't this the same as calling the cultivators of the 7 great powers a bunch of dogs? Only dogs would snatch food to eat. As the saying goes, a scholar prefers death to humiliation. For these people who came from big forces, they were even more concerned about their reputation. These people were humiliated. Their killing intent soared to the heavens. "We want your dog life." A group of cultivators got up from the ground and rushed towards the girl. "Kneel," the young girl said coldly. Her voice seemed to contain a terrifying magic. The group of cultivators immediately knelt on the ground. Why is it like this? Why is this happening? The cultivators from the 7 great powers roared furiously. They were about to go crazy. No matter what, they were still a group of people with status. Now, he was actually kneeling on the ground. What a disgrace. That kid seems to be around 17 or 18 years old. How can he be so powerful? A cultivator said in disbelief. The young girl didn't use a secret technique to hide her true age. That's why other cultivators were able to detect her age. So young, yet so powerful. It was truly shocking. "Who exactly are you? How dare you humiliate the cultivators of the 7 great powers of the Forsaken Heaven region like this?" A cold voice came from a private room on the 2nd floor. Then, a cultivator stepped out. When they saw that cultivator, many people were shocked because that cultivator's background was extremely great. He came from the 1,000 Desolation sect of the Forsaken Heaven region. His name was 1,000 World sect. Among the younger generation, this 1,000 World sect was second only to the 8 young masters. However, some people said that the 1,000 World sect could already compete with the 8 young masters. Because the 1,000 World sect had a lot of fortuitous encounters in the past few years, their cultivation had greatly increased. There were still many people who believed in this saying. "I heard that you're looking for the descendant of Heaven Emperor Huang." "I'm the descendant of Heaven Emperor Huang," the young girl said. Hearing this, 1,000 World sect slightly narrowed his eyes. He glanced at the young girl, then looked at the group of people at the young girl's table. When he saw the old man, he couldn't help but frown slightly. That old man made him feel an extremely dangerous aura. The 1,000 World sect was weak, so they didn't dare to offend these people too much. If they really fought because of this, at that time, the one who would suffer would still be him. However, the cultivators of the 7 great powers had been humiliated, and this matter couldn't be let go so easily. Otherwise, where would the dignity of the 7 great powers be? The 7 influential groups have indeed been looking for you, but we don't have any evil intentions. However, Your Excellency, you've humiliated us in such a way. The 7 influential groups aren't easy to bully. If you don't give me a satisfactory answer today, I'll immediately summon some strong cultivators from the 7 influential groups. At that time, don't blame us for bullying you, because we have the advantage in numbers, said Lin Feng. 1,000 World sect said in a deep voice, "I don't have any ill intentions. You should know better than me. Also, don't threaten me. If I was afraid of you, I wouldn't have made a move." The young girl still had a look of indifference. It was as if she really didn't put the 7 great powers in her eyes. Xiao, today's matter was indeed a bit impulsive. At this moment, the old man said, "Ancestor." The young girl called out, looking a little unconvinced. The old man waved his hand, and the young girl didn't continue speaking. The old man cupped his fists and said, "Today's matter is our fault. I have a bottle of soul-refining pills here. Treat it as compensation for these little friends. I hope everyone can forgive Xiao Yi's recklessness." What? Soul-refining pills. That's a top immortal pill. It can nourish the soul and greatly improve a cultivator's soul realm. It's priceless, and that old man actually took out a bottle. There are more than 20 people kneeling on the ground. Doesn't that mean that there are at least 20 soul-refining pills? And there might be more? A cultivator couldn't help but exclaim. Many cultivators had heard of the famous soul-refining pills, so when they saw the porcelain bottle in the old man's hand, their eyes were wide open. They couldn't wait to snatch the soul-refining pills away. However, the white-haired old man's strength was unfathomable. So, as for the rest, even if they had the intention to steal, they didn't have the courage to do so. When the cultivators of the 7 great powers kneeling on the ground heard that it was the soul-refining pills, their eyes immediately widened. Please remember the domain name of this book, mobile version of reading website, Chapter 5306. All right, since Senior is so sincere, I'll let today's matter go. Wan Shizong was a very tactful person. Since the other party had already given him a way out, he wouldn't continue. Naturally, he would not continue to pester them. Even if he really wanted to take revenge, now was not the time. The old man flicked his finger, and the bottle containing the soul-refining pills flew towards Wan Shizong. Wan Shizong kept the bottle. "Little let these people go as well." The old man looked at the young girl. The young girl was obviously unwilling, but since the old man had spoken, she couldn't go against it. So she could only let them go. The cultivators from the 7 factions stood up. "Let's go," Wan Shizong said. They didn't stay and quickly left. "Are you done eating?" The old man looked at the others and asked. "We're done eating," the cultivators said. "All right, let's settle the bill and leave," the old man said. Someone went to settle the bill. Seeing that these people were about to leave, Lin Feng stood up and walked towards the other party's table. Someone stopped Lin Feng, not letting Lin Feng get too close to the old man. "I have something to discuss with Senior," Lin Feng said. The cultivator, who stopped Lin Feng, looked at the old man. The old man looked at Lin Feng and asked, "What do you want to discuss, young friend?" Lin Feng said, "It's like this. I want to exchange a bottle of soul-refining pills with Senior. Is that possible?" "Hee, soul essence pills are nothing to my clan, but we don't exchange them with other people easily," said Lin Feng. The young girl said coldly. After hearing the young girl's words, Lin Feng's heart couldn't help but tremble slightly. Soul-refining pills were very precious. There were basically no soul-refining pills in circulation on the market, but this young girl said that the soul essence pill was nothing to her clan. This meant that her clan had most likely grasped the method to refine soul-refining pills. Otherwise, how could her clan look down on soul-refining pills? It was because they could refine them that they didn't think that soul-refining pills were anything special. But to outsiders, the soul essence pill was a supreme treasure that could drive countless cultivators crazy. Lin Feng said, "Children shouldn't interrupt when adults are talking." "What did you say?" Upon hearing Lin Feng's words, the young girl was enraged. She glared fiercely at Lin Feng with her phoenix eyes. He was itching to teach Lin Feng a lesson right now. Lin Feng ignored the young girl and looked at the old man. The girl became even angrier because Lin Feng actually dared to ignore her. This was truly intolerable. The old man smiled and said, "So many people want to obtain the soul origin pill, but you're the only one who dares to talk to me about it. You're quite brave." Lin Feng said, "Because I don't think you're a bad person. Even if I offended you, you wouldn't be angry. I also want the soul origin pill. So I said it. If I'm lucky, you might make a deal with me. That way, I'll be able to obtain the soul origin pill. If I'm unlucky, at most, I won't be able to obtain the soul origin pill. I won't lose anything. So you're doing this because you don't think I'm a bad person and won't attack you." The old man asked Lin Feng. "Yes." Lin Feng nodded. "Bootlicker." The young girl snorted coldly. Lin Feng continued to ignore her. The old man said, "What if you're wrong?" Lin Feng said, "Even if I'm wrong, even if my actions really make you angry, you still won't attack me." "Why are you so sure?" the old man asked. Lin Feng said, "If you like to use force to solve problems, you won't stop this, nephew. You dare to take advantage of me? Do you want to die?" The young girl glared at Lin Feng angrily. She had wanted to teach Lin Feng a lesson for a long time. Now, she finally had an opportunity. "Xiaoyi, don't be impulsive," the old man said. The young girl was annoyed. She wanted to attack him again and again, but she was stopped every time. This made her feel very sullen. The old man said, "There aren't many young people with a temperament like yours. All right, I can make a deal with you. 1 bottle of pills has 50 soul origin pills. How about this? Take out 1,000 immortal herbs, and you can take 1 bottle of soul origin pills." 1,000 immortal herbs was not a small number. Even a cultivator from a top power would find it difficult to take out 1,000 immortal herbs. However, to Lin Feng, 1,000 immortal herbs were nothing. Lin Feng said, "Senior, can I exchange for a few more bottles?" The old man said, "A cultivator can only take 5 soul origin pills at most. Taking too many will only harm the body." Hearing this, Lin Feng felt that it was a pity. It would be great if he could take as many soul origin pills as he wanted. However, such a situation was almost impossible. These top-grade pills all contained extremely strong resistance to medicinal effects. This point, Lin Feng was very clear on this point. However, Lin Feng still wanted to exchange for more. Even if he couldn't use them, others could. Lin Feng said, "I still have some friends who need soul origin pills, so I want to exchange for more." The old man said, "All right, I'll give you another bottle." The old man took out 2 bottles of soul origin pills. Lin Feng took out 2,000 immortal herbs. Seeing a young cultivator like Lin Feng casually take out 2,000 immortal herbs, many people couldn't help but wonder. Many people couldn't help but mutter, could it be that this kid had a fortuitous encounter? Was that why he could take out so many immortal herbs? Many people were looking at Lin Feng in an ice-cold way. However, Lin Feng didn't care. They wanted to die. Even if they came looking for trouble, Lin Feng was ready to accompany them any time. What's your name?" The young girl looked at Lin Feng and asked, "Why are you asking this?" Lin Feng asked, "I'm giving you face by asking." The young girl gritted her teeth and said, "Actually, the reason why she asked for Lin Feng's name was because she wanted to find Lin Feng after settling down. Then she would teach Lin Feng a lesson. Now that she was looking for trouble with Lin Feng, with the ancestor stopping her, she couldn't do anything. However, the young girl naturally wouldn't say this out loud. Seeing the young girl's arrogant attitude, Lin Feng couldn't help but sneer. In this world, there were always some people who thought they were better than others. It was truly laughable and foolish. Lin Feng ignored the young girl and walked towards his table. "You still haven't told me your name." The young girl said, The current you is not qualified to know my name. Lin Feng replied indifferently, You dare to look down on me? The young girl couldn't help but clench her fists and look angrily at Lin Feng, gnashing her teeth. End of chapter. Chapter 5307. Lin Feng met up with Leng Zishi and the others. Leng Zishi, Du Zhu, the evil dominator, and the sacred ancestor were all very happy, as they had a share of the soul essence pills that Lin Feng had obtained. They were naturally very excited, as increasing their soul's boundary was extremely important to any cultivator. When they thought about how their soul's boundary was about to increase, they couldn't stop grinning. At that moment, someone walked forward. Just like Lin Feng, this person wanted to exchange for soul essence pills. However, the old man ordered them to leave. The first person to make a move would have meat to eat, while the second person would have to suffer. The old man and the others didn't stop, and they continued walking outside. The girl called Xiao Yi turned around and glared at Lin Feng before leaving with the old man and the others. Du Zhu asked, Do you think these people are really the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang? Lin Feng replied, They do seem to be the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang. At that moment, many cultivators gathered around. When Lin Feng saw them, he couldn't help but frown slightly. He could roughly guess what these people were up to. One of them said, Little brother, you can't use so many pills. Why don't you sell some to us? We'll buy them at a high price. Lin Feng replied, I'm sorry, but I already have some of these pills, and I don't think they're enough. That's why I have no intention of selling them. At that moment, someone in the crowd sneered, That's a total of 100 pills. You're sharing a portion with us, but we didn't ask you to take them all out. We're outside, so we're giving you face, and you're giving me face as well. If you don't give us face, then don't blame us for being impolite. The person who had spoken didn't show himself, and his methods were extraordinary. Even Lin Feng couldn't see who had spoken, so it was obvious that this person didn't have good intentions. His words were very provocative, and Lin Feng couldn't help but sneer when he heard what the cultivator had said. His expression was indifferent as he said, Don't say such things behind people's backs. If you want the pills, you can try attacking me. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Don't forget, this is the Forsaken Heaven City. You foreign cultivators should behave yourselves. Otherwise, who knows if you can even see the sun tomorrow? The voice continued to threaten Lin Feng. Lin Feng said indifferently, If you come out now, I can guarantee that you won't see the sun tomorrow. Brat, you're really arrogant. The voice in the dark said, You don't even dare to show yourself. You're just a piece of trash. I don't want to waste my time talking to trash like you. Lin Feng mocked. You. The existence in the dark was clearly enraged. Lin Feng ignored him and said, Let's go. They stood up. Leng Zishi shouted, A good dog doesn't block the way. Hurry up and get out of the way. What are you talking about? Who are you scolding? Many people glared at him angrily. I'm scolding a dog. Are you guys scolding me? Leng Zishi looked like she wanted the world to be in chaos. She couldn't wait to fight. The surrounding people were so angry that their faces turned ashen, but they couldn't continue arguing with Leng Zishi, because if they continued arguing, wouldn't they be admitting that they were dogs? Lin Feng and the others paid the bill and left the restaurant. They didn't plan to stay outside any longer. They planned to return to their residence. Then they would go into seclusion to refine the soul-refining pill. On the way back, a black shadow appeared and headed straight for Lin Feng. Humph! Lin Feng couldn't help but snort coldly. He casually slashed out a ray of sword chi. Pooh! A tearing sound and a painful groan could be heard. The black shadow was obviously injured. The black shadow didn't dare to stay any longer. He turned around and fled. That guy's escape technique was extremely good. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. F***CK. It must be some people from the restaurant. They actually dared to intercept us halfway. They really don't know what's good for them. If I had known, I would have secretly released some poison and poisoned all those bastards to death. Duzu cursed. Lin Feng said, "They're just a bunch of rascals. Don't worry about them." The few of them returned to their residence. Since they were going into seclusion, they had to be fully prepared. Who knew if some people who didn't care about their lives would sneak up on them while they were in seclusion? This was something they had to take precautions against. After returning, Lin Feng began to set up some powerful formations. If there really was someone who didn't know what was going on, when the time came, the formations would be enough to make them suffer. Even if they didn't die, they would lose a layer of skin. After setting up the formations, Lin Feng could enter seclusion with peace of mind. Lin Feng took out the pills. Lung Zishi, Du Zhu, and the evil dominator each received 5 pills. After receiving the pills, the 3 of them returned to their rooms and entered seclusion. Lin Feng also returned to his room. He also took out 5 pills. In the past few years, Lin Feng's realm had been breaking through very quickly. In addition to his own realm breaking through quickly, Lin Feng's soul realm had also been improving very quickly. Especially when he was breaking through a large realm, his soul realm had improved even faster. Right now, Lin Feng's soul realm had already reached the peak of the Gold Immortal realm. The reason why Lin Feng's soul realm had improved so quickly was mainly related to Lin Feng's primordial spirit. Lin Feng wondered if he could use the soul essence pill to raise his soul realm to the Saint Immortal realm. If his soul realm could successfully break through to the Saint Immortal realm, it would definitely be a huge improvement for him. Lin Feng took a deep breath. Then he swallowed the 5 soul essence pills. Then Lin Feng began to refine the soul essence pills. Soon, the soul essence pill was refined into an extremely pure energy. Lin Feng began to absorb the energy that the soul essence pills had broken down into. As the energy was absorbed by Lin Feng's soul power began to increase. When the soul power had accumulated to a certain extent, Lin Feng began to try to break through to the Saint Immortal realm. However, it was not an easy task. Once, twice, thrice, 4 times, Lin Feng tried to break through to the Saint Immortal realm's soul realm again and again. He tried many times. He was unable to break through. However, Lin Feng did not give up. He tried a total of 375 times. Finally, the barrier of the realm, Lin Feng successfully broke through. Lin Feng's soul realm. He had finally broken through to the Saint Immortal realm. Lin Feng opened his eyes. His face was filled with joy. It was too important for the soul realm to break through to the Saint Immortal realm, because this meant that Lin Feng's soul attack could hurt a Saint Immortal realm cultivator. Lin Feng, how about we make a deal? Right at this moment, a voice resounded in Lin Feng's mind. This voice, please remember the domain name of this book, mobile version of reading website. Chapter 5308. Lin Feng had been busy with all sorts of things recently, so he didn't have time to deal with Murong Yuxuan. Murong Yuxuan hadn't taken the initiative to contact Lin Feng either. But now, she had taken the initiative to contact Lin Feng. Lin Feng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. Then he asked, "What kind of deal do you want to make?" "I can agree to help you realize your ambitions, and in return, you have to give me my freedom and 5 soul origin pills," Murong Yuxuan said. Lin Feng had already guessed that Murong Yuxuan had come out to negotiate with him because of the soul origin pills. Therefore, Lin Feng wasn't particularly surprised when he heard Murong Yuxuan's words. Murong Yuxuan was an extremely shrewd woman. She wouldn't agree to something that wasn't profitable. Lin Feng said, "Do you think you're qualified to talk to me about this?" Murong Yuxuan said, "I do. I do have the qualifications. You should know how special God King Valley is. After I return to God King Valley, I can pull God King Valley to your side. At that time, you won't just have God King Valley as an ally, because there are too many factions that have good relations with God King Valley. Therefore, I think you should know my value." Lin Feng said, "Yes, it's as you said. God King Valley is a very important faction, but you're just a cultivator of the younger generation. Even if you're extraordinary, do you think you can influence the decisions of the higher-ups? You can't. Therefore, you're just drawing a big pie in advance, but it's a pie that you can't eat. I can influence the decisions of the higher-ups," Murong Yuxuan said. Oh, Lin Feng was a little surprised because Murong Yuxuan's tone was very firm. This made Lin Feng puzzled. What kind of ability did Murong Yuxuan have to influence the decisions of the higher-ups? Moreover, he had a look of absolute certainty. Lin Feng asked, "How can you influence the decisions of the higher-ups?" "This is a secret of mine, and only the higher-ups know about it." Murong Yuxuan took a deep breath and said, "What secret?" Lin Feng asked doubtfully. "I am the reincarnation of the daughter of the founder of the godly King Valley," Murong Yuxuan said. "What?" Hearing this, Lin Feng's face couldn't help but reveal an extremely shocked expression. Reincarnated bodies were extremely rare. However, any reincarnated body, they were all extremely terrifying figures. Murong Yuxuan said that she was a reincarnated body. Moreover, she was the reincarnation of the daughter of the godly King Valley's founder. This identity was too sensitive. This identity could indeed affect the upper echelons of the godly King Valley. Murong Yuxuan said, "That's why I said I can influence those higher-ups. Do you think I have that ability?" Lin Feng replied, "Indeed, you might be able to affect them. So we can make this deal." Murong Yuxuan let out a long breath. Lin Feng summoned Murong Yuxuan. Seeing Murong Yuxuan again, he still felt amazed. Murong Yuxuan was truly a goddess-like beauty. "Can you undo my seal now?" Murong Yuxuan asked. Lin Feng said, "Don't worry. There are some words that are useless. Therefore, I need you to swear allegiance to me. I don't think this request is too much, right?" "I can swear," Murong Yuxuan said. In fact, when she decided to cooperate with Lin Feng, Murong Yuxuan had already thought that Lin Feng would make her swear allegiance to him. Murong Yuxuan naturally didn't want to agree, but she had to agree even if she didn't want to. She was under the eaves. She had no choice but to lower her head. Furthermore, swearing allegiance was definitely a basic condition for both sides to negotiate. If even this basic condition couldn't be met, this negotiation was meaningless. It was a negotiation that could not be continued. "Let's begin now," Lin Feng said. Murong Yuxuan raised her right hand. She pointed at the sky and swore, "I, Murong Yuxuan, swear on my soul that from now on I will be loyal to Lin Feng and will never betray Lin Feng. If I violate this oath, may my soul shatter and scatter." After Murong Yuxuan swore, an oath rune formed between Lin Feng and Murong Yuxuan. From now on, Murong Yuxuan would never be able to betray Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled and said, "A wise man submits to circumstances. You will know in the future that your decision today is completely correct." Murong Yuxuan said, "I hope so. Can you undo my seal now?" Lin Feng came in front of Murong Yuxuan and pinched her snow-white chin, raising her face slightly. "What are you doing?" Murong Yuxuan's long eyelashes fluttered, and she looked at Lin Feng nervously. She was naturally worried that Lin Feng would do something bad to her. If Lin Feng really did that, she didn't have the ability to go against Lin Feng. Said Lin Feng, I just want to quietly admire that beautiful face because I don't know when I'll be able to see it again. Hearing this, Murong Yuxuan's face couldn't help but blush slightly. This appearance was really charming. Lin Feng lowered his head. He kissed Murong Yuxuan's red lips. You. Murong Yuxuan was like a frightened rabbit and quickly pushed Lin Feng away. She then pointed at Lin Feng. Her face was so red that it was almost bleeding. Cough. Sorry, I'm really sorry. I couldn't control myself just now. Lin Feng said, You're shameless. Murong Yuxuan said, hatefully. The first kiss that she had saved for so many years was taken away just like that. She was naturally incomparably angry. Lin Feng said, It's not like I've been shameless for a day or two. You have to remember that I'm your master. Even if I let you serve me in bed, it's a matter of course, not to mention that I just kissed you. I'll submit to you, but that doesn't include serving you in bed. If you dare to force me to serve you in bed, I'd rather die. Murong Yuxuan said, hatefully. Lin Feng said, I'm just joking with you. Why take it so seriously? But when we get to know each other more in the future, maybe you'll beg to serve me in bed. Bah! Who would beg to serve you in bed? You're really shameless to the extreme. Murong Yuxuan spat softly. Lin Feng said, Who can say for sure what will happen in the future? Now, I'll break the restriction on your body. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng released a series of seals. The seals fused into Murong Yuxuan's body. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 5309. Murong Yuxuan had regained her freedom. Her face immediately lit up with joy. She had been molested by Lin Feng. She had forgotten about it. The feeling of freedom was too good. Why hadn't she felt this way before? Perhaps only after losing his freedom would he be able to feel the wonderful feeling of freedom. You have regained your freedom. You can return to the godly King Valley. Lin Feng said. Murong Yuxuan stretched out her right hand and said, You promise me the soul refining pill. Can you give it to me now? Lin Feng took out the soul refining pill. He then handed it over to Murong Yuxuan. After accepting the soul refining pill, Murong Yuxuan was very happy. The soul refining pill was also very effective for her. Murong Yuxuan said, I know you plan to enter the barren sky ridge, but you should think twice before entering. The danger of that place is far beyond your imagination. Has anyone from the godly King Valley entered it before? Lin Feng asked curiously. In the past, my father entered that place. Even someone as strong as him almost died. Murong Yuxuan said. Yes. Lin Feng nodded. He knew how terrifying the barren sky ridge was, but Lin Feng would still enter it. There were some things that could only be solved in the barren sky ridge. This was a problem that couldn't be avoided. However, Lin Feng didn't talk about it with Murong Yuxuan for long. Murong Yuxuan said, I'm leaving. If there's anything, you can send someone to the godly King Valley to contact me. If I'm not in the godly King Valley, you can also contact the other higher-ups. All right, be careful on the way. Lin Feng said. Murong Yuxuan gave Lin Feng a deep look and left. After Murong Yuxuan left, the demon lord's voice echoed in Lin Feng's mind. The demon lord said, Give me a few soul refining pills. After hearing the demon lord's voice, Lin Feng was very happy. Lin Feng asked, Demon lord, when did you wake up? I just woke up not too long ago. The demon lord said. How's your recovery? Lin Feng continued to ask. You've recovered quite well. The demon lord replied. That's good. Lin Feng was delighted. he took out 5 soul essence pills and gave them to the demon lord. Lin Feng then took out another Saint Devil reincarnation pill and gave it to the demon lord. Is this the Saint Devil reincarnation pill? The demon lord couldn't help but exclaim after a careful observation. Lin Feng asked in astonishment, "You know about the Holy Devil reincarnation pill as well?" "Of course." The demon lord nodded and said, "That's a heaven-defying medicinal pill. With a medicinal pill like that, you'll be able to do a lot of things." After that, the demon lord didn't say anything else. He probably went to refine the soul-refining pill. Lin Feng then summoned Bibi and the others. Bibi, Blackie, Xiaolong, the Emperor Archaic, the Ancestor Insect, the Devil King Insect, and the 3-headed Viper each received 5 soul-refining pills. The Dragon Rabbit wasn't good at fighting, so he didn't give it any. Bibi and the others went to refine the soul-refining pills. Next, Lin Feng summoned the Stone Golem clone. The Stone Golem clone also received 5 soul-refining pills. The Stone Golem clone's cultivation level was much higher than Lin Feng's. The Stone Golem had already broken through to the Golden Immortal Realm, while Lin Feng was still working hard to break through to the Sky Immortal Realm. Lung, Zishi, Duzu, and the demonic dominator came out of seclusion one after another. When they came out, they were beaming with joy. It seemed that they had all received a lot of benefits. Lin Feng was naturally happy for them. Boom! At that moment, there was a violent fluctuation. Someone's fighting. Lung Zishi shouted excitedly. Then she ran out. Lin Feng and the others also rushed out. They saw from afar that there was indeed a great battle in the distance. Surprisingly, Lin Feng knew all the people who were fighting. One of them was the cross-dressing girl. The other was the Thousand World sect. It wasn't strange that the two of them were fighting against Lin Feng. At that moment, Lin Feng heard the conversation of the cultivators next to him. "I heard that the descendant of Heavenly Emperor Huang provoked the Thousand World sect." "There's such a thing?" "Of course. The descendant of Heavenly Emperor Huang is young, but he's not someone who's afraid of trouble." At that moment, another cultivator said, "Brother, don't spread rumors. Brother, don't spread false information here. It was the 7 great powers who provoked the descendants of Celestial Emperor Huang first," said Lin Feng. "What exactly is going on?" Someone asked. The cultivator explained. "It all started like this. The descendant of Heavenly Emperor Huang went to the ancient wasteland trading company to buy some things, and then he encountered the cultivators of the 7 great powers. I'm sure you all know about the previous conflict. Although it was resolved, it couldn't be helped. After all, the 7 great powers didn't have the upper hand. Moreover, the descendant of Heavenly Emperor Huang had the support of an expert from the older generation. That old man also gave them a bottle of soul essence pills as compensation, so the matter was temporarily settled. But the cultivators of the 7 great powers still hate the descendant of Huang Tian Emperor. That young man was alone and was targeted by the cultivators of the 7 great powers. They wanted to get back at him, so they contacted some experts to besiege that young man. The result was unexpected. A group of people was defeated by that young man. That young man is also ruthless. This time, he directly crippled all of them. Hiss! After hearing the cultivator's words, many people couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was the territory of the 7 great powers, and he dared to cripple the cultivators of the 7 great powers? How audacious! The cultivator continued. The Wan Shi sect was also nearby. When they saw so many people being crippled, they were naturally infuriated. That's why they fought against that young man. I think the Wan Shi sect is the mastermind behind this. Someone said. The cultivator's words resonated with many people. Indeed, many people felt that the Wansure sect was the mastermind behind this. However, the Wansure sect didn't think that the young man would dare to cripple so many people from the seven great powers. I'll let you know how the word regret is written. The Wansure sect floated in the air, his expression extremely gloomy. He looked at the young man with a murderous gaze. Although she was disguised as a man, she didn't have the weakness of a woman. On the contrary, she was extremely domineering and arrogant. The girl looked at the Wansure sect with disdain and sneered. With just you? A piece of trash like you dares to talk so big? Who gave you the courage? The cultivators who were watching the show immediately vented their anger. That young man dared to look down on the Wansure sect. Wasn't that too arrogant? End of chapter. Chapter 53:10. As a top genius of the Thousand Worlds sect, he was naturally infuriated to be looked down upon like this. Shameless boasting. I'll let you have a taste of my theurgy. Thousand Tao heaven slaying. The Thousand Worlds sect coldly shouted as a huge world appeared behind him. It was a world of darkness. That world of darkness seemed to be able to devour everything. Within that world of darkness, tens of thousands of swords appeared. Each of those swords seemed to be swords that had transcended the desolate era. It was simply unimaginable how powerful those swords were. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. However, at this very moment, those swords turned into streams of light and quickly flew out of the world of darkness. In the blink of an eye, they had already flown out of the world of darkness. The densely packed swords all slashed towards the young girl. What a terrifying theurgy! Many people were shocked. The Thousand Worlds sect's fame had already spread throughout the Forsaken Heaven region. Many experts of the older generation might not even be a match for the Thousand Worlds sect. In these years, the Thousand Worlds sect had been constantly challenging experts in order to achieve self-transcendence. Therefore, many experts had died in the hands of the Thousand Worlds sect, and the Thousand Worlds sect's cultivation had been soaring. Now, it was widely rumored that the Thousand Worlds sect could contend against the Undying Realm's 8 young masters. Many people believed this without a doubt. Therefore, one could infer how powerful the Thousand Worlds sect's battle strength was. There might be many people who knew the Thousand Worlds sect, but very few had seen the Thousand Worlds sect in action. Therefore, when everyone saw the Thousand Worlds sect in action, they were still extremely shocked. The scene was grand, and the momentum shook the heavens. Of course, the power was also unimaginable. Such battle strength could be described as unfathomable. Countless swords pierced through the void and instantly arrived in front of the young girl. Those swords came from all directions. They surrounded the young girl. There was simply no way to dodge. I wonder if that young man can withstand the Thousand Worlds sect's attack. Someone couldn't help but mutter to himself. I think it'll be difficult. The Thousand Worlds sect is indeed too powerful. Even if that young man's strength is extraordinary, he's still too young. Compared to an existence like the Thousand Worlds sect, there's definitely a huge gap. Someone continued. Many people nodded. Indeed, that cultivator voiced the thoughts of many people. And at this moment, the young man made his move. The young man slowly walked towards the Thousand Worlds sect. When the densely packed swords were only a meter away from the young man's body, they were all frozen in the void. It was difficult for him to take another step forward. Oh my God, what kind of method was this? Could it be that he was imprisoning the void? Spatial shackles shouldn't be able to trap all those swords, right? A cultivator couldn't help but say. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. He felt that the girl's technique wasn't as simple as void confinement. However, it was hard for Lin Feng to say what kind of method it was. The only thing that could be confirmed was that the girl's methods were indeed terrifying. The girl didn't stop. He continued to walk forward. At this moment, something shocking happened. A sword was floating in the air. All of them shattered. Many people were astonished. They didn't even know what method the girl used to break the Thousand-Era Sect's divine ability. It was truly inconceivable. The Thousand-World Sect's face became gloomy. He didn't expect the girl to be so powerful. Humph! The Thousand-World Sect couldn't help but snort coldly, then said, "What a powerful method! No wonder you're so arrogant. Take this next move of mine. Great, desolate, divine palm." The Thousand-World Sect coldly shouted. Across the void, a palm struck towards the girl. In the void, a huge energy palm was condensed. That energy palm was condensed from the power of desolation. This power of desolation was not only powerful, but it also contained the power of time. When the power of desolation exploded, it was as if it could destroy the world. Therefore, this great, desolate divine palm was definitely an unparalleled technique. The gigantic hand of energy enveloped the girl. It ruthlessly attacked. However, then a shocking scene appeared. When the energy palm landed on the girl's body trembled. The energy palm instantly dissipated. What happened? Countless people looked at each other. That was because no one knew what method the young girl had used, but the energy palm had already been shattered. That little girl is so powerful. Duzu couldn't help but sigh. Lung Zishi muttered, "What's so powerful about that compared to me? She's too weak." Although she said that, but in reality, in Lung Zishi's heart, she was also very shocked, because that girl was indeed too powerful. Most importantly, no one knew what method she used to break the Thousand-World Sect's attack. The unknown was the most terrifying. So, weak Thousand-World Sect, I've heard of your reputation, but now it seems that calling you trash is an insult to the word trash. The girl sneered. Many people smiled bitterly. She was as arrogant as ever. I'm now suspecting whether that boy is the son of Heaven Emperor Huang. Otherwise, how can he be so powerful? Someone said, "A few of Heaven Emperor Huang's sons died in battle during the dark turmoil, so he obviously isn't. Maybe he awakened his ancestral blood." Someone said, "The girl was very good at hiding, and basically no one realized that she was a girl. They all thought that she was a teenager. If everyone knew that she was actually a teenager, they would be even more surprised. Because the top geniuses or experts in history, most of them were men. How many women were there? They could be counted on one hand. Don't be too complacent. This is just the beginning. Winning first doesn't mean that you will always win. The one who laughs until the end is the real winner." Thousand-World Sect sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, Thousand-World Sect used a powerful sacred art. Everyone saw. Thousand-World Sect's body began to disintegrate. Thousand-World Sect's body split into two into four into 8, just like that. Continuously disintegrating. Thousand-World Sect's body grew more and more, and finally hundreds of Thousand-World Sect's bodies appeared. Is it an illusion? Someone said. At this time, a cultivator said, "It's not an illusion. Each of them is formed by combining vitality with the puppet technique. It's said that the clones created this way can have 70% of their original battle strength." Please remember the domain name of this book, mobile version of reading website. Chapter 5311. It was no wonder that the cultivator was so shocked. It was because Wan Shizong's method was too powerful. Of course, although those clones could unleash 70% of the original body's battle strength. However, they couldn't hold on for a long time. Thinking about it, it made sense. They were already so powerful. To hold on for a long time was too abnormal. If they were too abnormal, they would be punished by the heavens. Even the heavens wouldn't allow such a method to exist. Therefore, there was a limit to all kinds of powerful methods. But even if they could only hold on for a while, there were too many clones. The lethality caused was also unimaginable. Kill! Wan Shirzong coldly shouted, after his voice fell. Then, the dense clones all charged towards the girl. Hundreds of clones, attacking together. Just how vast was the momentum created by this? It was simply shocking. In the void, the killing intent seemed to have condensed into a substance. Hundreds of clones displayed their methods. All kinds of powerful divine abilities condensed and charged towards Wan Shirzong. So many divine abilities gathered together. It was like the end of the world. The surrounding cultivators couldn't help but reveal a terrified expression on their faces. At this time, everyone saw that when those divine abilities bombarded the young man, snowflakes began to fall around the young man. The snowflakes were beautiful and magnificent. After the snowflakes fell, the snowflakes actually bloomed. Then, those snowflakes, they began to devour the divine abilities that were bombarding him. A snowflake devoured a divine ability. What kind of method is this? Everyone had a dumbfounded expression. The methods of this young man were too strange and too powerful. It was truly inconceivable. Those snowflakes flew towards the crowd. Bang, bang, bang. Then, the snowflakes exploded. Terrifying energy surged out in an instant, shrouding the clones within it. Those snowflakes didn't explode individually. They exploded together. It was like a series of explosions. The power of a chain explosion would be magnified many times. Now, the power of the snowflakes exploding was magnified many times. The clones were blasted into smithereens. Of course, not all of the clones were destroyed. There were still many clones that had not been destroyed. Those clones that were not destroyed were quickly struck by lightning, because when the girl stepped forward, the clones began to shatter. Weak. You are still too weak. The girl's expression was indifferent as she looked at the Wan Shirzong with disdain. How is this possible? The cultivators who were watching the show exclaimed, unable to believe their eyes. That youth. It could no longer be described as powerful. It would be more appropriate to use the word extreme pervert to describe it. Many people couldn't believe what they were seeing. However, all of this was real. Wan Shirzong was originally confident that he could defeat the girl, but the result was hard for him to accept. That method just now was one of his trump cards. Yet, it was so easily broken by the other party. This kind of blow, it was huge. Whoosh. Wan Shirzong waved his hand, and a treasure sword flew out. It was an ultimate true immortal sword. It was very powerful, and under Wan Shirzong's control, it manifested streaks of sword chi. The sword chi combined and turned into a long sword chi dragon. The long sword chi dragon slashed towards the girl. There seemed to be an invisible barrier in front of the girl. When the sword chi dragon flew over, there were clanging sounds of collision. The streaks of sword chi seemed to be slashing at a powerful defensive magic treasure. The sword chi all shattered. The treasured sword was also sent flying by the impact. Now it is my turn to attack, the girl said with a cold smile. Hearing the girl's words, Wan Shirzong acted as if he was facing a great enemy. He didn't dare to stay any longer and quickly retreated, trying to increase the distance between him and the girl. But at this time, the girl attacked. She made several hand seals, and then a sacred lotus descended from the sky. When he saw the descending Saint Lotus, he was shocked. Wan Shirzong was shocked because he felt an extremely terrifying aura from the sacred lotus. That aura, It made him feel like he had fallen into a bottomless abyss. The sacred lotus hid endless dangers. Wan Shizong saw that he couldn't dodge, so he took out a powerful defensive magic treasure. It was an umbrella. Wan Shizong opened the umbrella. Bam! At this time, the sacred lotus bloomed. When the sacred lotus bloomed, an extremely terrifying power surged out from the sacred lotus. That terrifying force directly slammed into Wan Shizong's body. The umbrella-shaped magic treasure protecting Wan Shizong was instantly destroyed. The magic treasure directly exploded. Wan Shizong was also affected. The moment the umbrella-shaped magic treasure was destroyed, he was also attacked by an extremely terrifying power. Wan Shizong couldn't bear the impact of that power. Because of that, he was sent flying. Wan Shizong couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He tried his best to stabilize his body, but because of his heavy injuries, Wan Shizong couldn't stabilize his body. He fell to the ground. Wan Shizong lost. Not only did he lose, but he lost miserably. Just how strong is that young man? Many people exclaimed. The young man showed battle strength that exceeded their understanding. Of course, at this time, there were already some people who noticed that something was wrong. They noticed that the young man seemed to be a young girl. After discovering this, they were even more shocked. After all, in history, there was almost no such young and powerful girl. Of course, those people didn't say anything. The young girl planned to leave. However, she looked at Lin Feng. Then, the young girl walked towards Lin Feng. Seems like the target is us. Let's run. Du Zhu said, Why run? Who's afraid of who? At most, we'll just fight. Lung Zishi said, actually seeing the various methods the young girl showed. Lung Zishi was also a bit scared. The young girl was really too terrifying. She didn't know how she could be so strong. She could be weaker than her opponent, but she couldn't admit defeat. So, Lung Zishi didn't plan to leave. Soon, the young girl arrived at Lin Feng's place. The young girl looked coldly at Lin Feng and said, Do you still remember me? Of course. Lin Feng replied, You dare to look down on me? You're really reckless. Come out and fight with me. I can finish you in 3 moves. The young girl said coldly. End of chapter. Chapter 53:12. Lin Feng didn't like the girl's arrogant personality. The reason why the girl had such a personality, it probably had a lot to do with the girl's almost undefeated body. If it was anyone else who said this to me, they would have been dead long ago. However, because I made a deal with your ancestor, I can give your ancestor face and not attack you today. Lin Feng said with an indifferent expression. When the surrounding people heard Lin Feng's words, they were all speechless. Everyone knew what kind of terrifying existence that young man was. However, the human cultivator who appeared in front of him actually had such contempt for that youth. This was truly inconceivable to everyone. Many people were muttering, Where did this guy get the courage to say those words? He should have already seen the youth make his move. Since he saw the youth make his move, he shouldn't be so contemptuous of the youth, right? But he actually did that. Could it be that he really had the strength to do so? I'll destroy you. The girl was angered by Lin Feng's words. She raised her hand and wanted to slap Lin Feng. But at this moment, a voice sounded, Shao Yi, stop. In the distance, the old man arrived with a group of people. Ancestor. After seeing the old man, the girl stopped, although she really wanted to teach Lin Feng a lesson. Let Lin Feng know how powerful she was. However, she would not go against the ancestor's words. Senior. Seeing the old man arrive, Lin Feng cupped his fists. The old man smiled and said, She is still young and is easily impulsive. If she has offended you in any way, I hope you can forgive her. Seeing the ancestor being so polite to that hateful guy, and even apologizing on her behalf, the girl felt extremely unhappy. However, she didn't say anything. She just kept staring at Lin Feng. Her fighting spirit was very strong. Obviously, she wouldn't let it go. Lin Feng said, naturally, I won't lower myself to the same level as Nephew Gu. After exchanging a few words with the old man, Lin Feng and the others left together. I think the 7 great powers will definitely attack those people. Lung Zishi said. Lin Feng said, that elder is not simple. If the people from the 7 great powers want to deal with him, they will suffer heavy casualties. If the higher-ups of the 7 great powers are smart, they will not make a move. The elder and the others walked out of the city. They were going to the barren Sky Ridge. It was just a short rest in the Forsaken Heaven City. In addition, the young lady had caused trouble in the Forsaken Heaven City. Therefore, the old man did not wish to continue staying in the Forsaken Heaven City. If he continued to stay, there would definitely be a lot of trouble. Ancestor, that guy is extremely detestable. Why do you keep stopping me from attacking him? The young girl said gloomily. The elder replied, that person is very terrifying. You're not his match. When the rest of the people heard the old ancestor's words, they were all shocked. They knew how powerful Xiao Yi was, but the ancestor said that Xiao Yi was not a match for that young human cultivator. Wasn't this too inconceivable? However, the ancestor did not seem to be joking at all. When the young girl heard the elder's words, she became extremely unconvinced. She said, Ancestor, we haven't made a move yet, so we can't determine who is weak and who is strong. You must have sensed wrongly. The elder naturally knew what the young girl was thinking. He said, even if you sensed wrongly, try not to provoke such a person. Even if you can defeat him, you will definitely have to pay a heavy price. You can only befriend such a person and not offend him. You are too good at offending people. You should understand that there is always someone stronger than you. When you are outside, you should try to avoid conflicts. Who knows if there is a powerful force behind him that we can't afford to offend? Yes, the young girl replied. Although she seemed to have listened to the elder's words on the surface, she still did not agree with him. Bastard, just you wait. When I have the chance, I will definitely beat you until you are looking for your teeth on the ground. The young girl thought viciously to herself. Back at his residence, he rested for the night. The next day, Lin Feng and the others went to check out of their rooms. Then they rushed to the barren Sky Ridge. On the way, they saw many cultivators flying in the direction of the barren Sky Ridge. This was normal. After all, the barren Sky Ridge was very famous. Many people would go to the barren Sky Ridge. They wanted to admire the barren Sky Ridge. The journey was safe and sound. Half a month later, Lin Feng and the others arrived at the barren Sky Ridge. The barren Sky Ridge was located in the central region of the barren Sky Ancient Forest. The barren Sky Ridge was made up of 72 mountain ranges. The crisscrossing mountain ranges extended for hundreds of miles. Therefore, the barren Sky Ridge was extremely large. There was only one entrance to the barren Sky Ridge. This was because the other places had extremely powerful restrictions. Entering the barren Sky Ridge from other places was no different from suicide. There were indeed many people in the outer region of the barren Sky Ridge. Lin Feng and the others stood in the outer region of the barren Sky Ridge and looked inside. After arriving, Lin Feng's expression became extremely serious because his blood was flowing at a much faster speed. He hadn't even entered the barren Sky Ridge yet. His sudden inspiration ability had already been activated. It was obvious. How dangerous was the barren Sky Ridge? The barren sky ridge was definitely more dangerous than any of the places of death Lin Feng had been to before. Those people are here too. Du Zhu pointed in a direction. Lin Feng looked over and saw the old man, the young woman, and the others. If Huang Tiandi is really alive and reunited with them, it will mean a lot to these people, Lung Zixi said. Yes. Lin Feng said, it's hard to say whether the current Huang Tiandi is their ancestor or not. Lin Feng's words made sense. A powerful titled battle pet warrior was very attractive. Back then, Huang Tiandi had died. Naturally, it was normal for someone else to take his title. The descendants of Huang Tiandi couldn't be sure whether the Huang Tiandi was their ancestor or not. Therefore, they might enter to find Huang Tiandi. This was extremely risky. Of course, they could also try to contact Huang Tiandi through other methods. At this time, the people began to set up the altar. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that they didn't want to risk entering the barren sky ridge. They wanted to use the sacrificial method to try to contact Huang Tiandi. It was just that he didn't know if this method would work. Whoosh, 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 just as the descendants of Huang Tiandi were setting up the altar, a large number of strong cultivators flew over from the distance. They were all experts from the 7 major powers of the barren sky region. End of chapter. Chapter 53:13. There were about 200 experts from the 7 great powers of the Forsaken Heaven region. The leader was an old man. The old man was tall and sturdy, and he gave off the aura of a superior. He was extremely powerful. Apart from the old man, there were also some top experts. The 7 great powers of the Forsaken Heaven region had many experts. These people, they obviously came with ill intentions. They surrounded the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang. What's going on? Why are the experts of the 7 great powers surrounding those people? Some cultivators asked, puzzled. It seemed that the cultivator who asked this question, he probably didn't know that those people were the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang. At that moment, a cultivator who knew the truth said, those people are the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang. Previously, the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang clashed with some cultivators from the 7 great powers and even crippled many of them. Even a top genius, like the Thousand World sect, was beaten half to death. The grudge between the 2 sides has been completely formed. The 7 great powers are naturally not people who will suffer in silence. That's why so many people have come this time to take revenge on the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang. Are they really the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang? Some cultivators were shocked. It was rumored that Heavenly Emperor Huang's family had been destroyed, so everyone thought that Heavenly Emperor Huang had no descendants. The cultivators who had gone to the Forsaken Heaven City had heard some things about the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang. However, only a portion of the cultivators who came to the Forsaken Heaven Ridge came from the Forsaken Heaven City. That was why many people didn't know about the descendants of Heavenly Emperor Huang. It should be, a cultivator said. Many people were shocked. It was widely rumored that Heavenly Emperor Huang was still alive and that his descendants had appeared. Could they have gotten some reliable information? Was Heavenly Emperor Huang really still alive? If this ancient expert was still alive, it was enough to shock the world. Everyone, why are you surrounding us? A middle-aged cultivator asked in a low voice. Although he was surrounded by a large number of cultivators, the middle-aged cultivator was still calm. You crippled so many people from the 7 great powers. Hand over the culprit. Otherwise, don't blame us for being merciless. An expert from the 7 great powers said coldly, "Hee, I just crippled a bunch of trash. If you want to take revenge for those trash, I don't mind crippling you as well." The young girl sneered. Her arrogance seemed to be emitted from her bones. The surrounding cultivators who were watching the show couldn't help but discuss spiritedly. The young girl's words naturally left them in disbelief. Such a young cultivator. How could he dare to say such words? The cultivators who had walked out of the Forsaken Heaven City were not surprised. A mere junior dares to act so arrogantly just because you have some strength? Do you really think that none of the 7 great powers can stop you? A cultivator in his 30s from the 7 great powers said with a sneer. Yang Ming, this was a powerful existence. He was an expert with a strong foundation. It was said that he had cultivated for 270,000 years, but he had stepped into the golden immortal realm. He's different from those old and weak cultivators. He's still very young, so his blood chi is still very strong. That's why he's so strong. A cultivator recognized the identity of the cultivator who spoke and said aloud. When Yang Ming's identity was revealed, many people felt very surprised because many people had heard of Yang Ming. But no one had seen Yang Ming before. Now that they saw Yang Ming, they were naturally shocked. Yang Ming. He was indeed an extremely terrifying existence. Yang Ming slapped his palm towards the young girl. A large energy handprint formed in the void. That energy handprint blasted towards the young girl. The young girl sneered. She slapped out across the void. Her attack also condensed into a large energy handprint. That energy handprint blasted towards Yang Ming's energy handprint. Bang! The 2 energy handprints collided in the void, and then both were annihilated. All-directional nirvana. Suddenly, the young girl shouted softly. Both of her hands were constantly changing hand seals. This was the first time the young girl was so serious. When she was dealing with the Thousand World sect and the others, she seemed to be a little careless. After all, her current opponent was a golden immortal, and a golden immortal with a strong blood chi. So, no matter how arrogant the young girl was, she would still take her opponent seriously. All-directional destruction. Yang Ming sneered. He also used an extremely tyrannical divine ability. The power of nirvana and the power of destruction formed in the void. Both sides used their divine abilities. After a powerful attack was brewed, it collided again. This time, Yang Ming's divine ability was actually broken by the young girl's divine ability. Then, Yang Ming was blasted away. Wah! Yang Ming couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His face also became pale. Yang Ming is injured. He is a golden, immortal powerhouse. He was actually injured by a teenage young girl. This is too unbelievable, right? Many people started to discuss. They simply couldn't believe what they saw. But everything that happened in front of them was real. They had to believe it even if they didn't want to. Those cultivators who knew that the young girl was strong before couldn't help but feel extremely shocked when they saw the young girl defeated Yang Ming. After all, Yang Ming was not someone the Thousand World sect and the others could compare to. The cultivators of the 7 major forces couldn't help but have their faces suddenly sank. Many powerhouses revealed a dense killing intent in their eyes. Since both sides had become enemies, they couldn't let such a powerful person go, or else she would be a huge threat in the future. That little girl can actually defeat a golden immortal. That's too abnormal. Duzu said. Lin Feng couldn't help but nod. He said, "It's really strange. Logically speaking, at her age, she shouldn't be so strong. I don't know how she increased her strength. If she was enlightened by someone, then it's fine. If she increased her strength by herself, then it's too terrifying. She shouldn't have increased her strength by herself, right?" Leng Zishi couldn't help but say. However, when she said this, she was very lacking in confidence. because Lung Zishi had a strange feeling. She felt that young girl might have increased her strength by herself. Do it. The old man, who led the 7 major forces, waved his hand. After receiving the order, the more than 200 powerhouses of the 7 major forces all revealed killing intent. It seemed that the powerhouses of the 7 major forces wanted to join forces to kill the descendant of Heavenly Emperor Huang. End of chapter. Chapter 53:14. Humph. Just as the experts from the 7 great powers were about to attack, the old man from the Huang celestial emperor's side suddenly snorted coldly. As soon as he spoke, a terrifying pressure spread out from his body. That pressure was simply too terrifying. It was as if an ancient titled god had awakened. Such a powerful aura was terrifying. The cultivators from the 7 great powers who were about to attack paled when they sensed the pressure coming from the old man's body. Only now did they realize how terrifying the old man was. He was simply an undefeatable existence. The cultivators who were about to attack no longer dared to do so. They all looked at the old man in horror. What a powerful aura! Lin Feng took a deep breath. Even with his current cultivation level, he couldn't help but feel a sense of heaviness when he sensed the terrifying aura coming from the old man. The old man's battle prowess. He was absolutely tyrannical to an unfathomable extent. Duzu said, "I wonder what era that old man is from. He looks like he has 1 foot in the grave, but he's still so powerful. He's really powerful." Lung Zishi said, "He's from the ancient chaos era." The ancient chaos era? How can you tell that he's from the ancient chaos era? Lin Feng looked at Lung Zishi with a puzzled expression. Lung Zishi said, "His aura, he has an aura unique to the ancient chaos era. This aura has fused with his body, his soul, and his magic power. Therefore, he should be from the ancient chaos era." This was one of Lung Zishi's special abilities. She could tell which era a person was from. Lin Feng hadn't expected the old man to be an expert from the ancient chaos era. It was true. It was too ancient. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He said, "If he's from the ancient chaos era, doesn't that mean he's seen the Huang celestial emperor?" "Yes." Lung Zishi nodded. "We were wrong." The old man, who was leading the 7 forces, said with a pale face. In fact, this old man was very powerful. Even in the era of titled gods, he was considered an extremely powerful expert. However, it was nothing in front of the old man from the Huang celestial emperor's bloodline. His heart, he was trembling. If he had known earlier that the old man from Huangtian Emperor's bloodline was so powerful, he would not have come to find trouble with these people. Right now, he had kicked an iron plate. It was no longer a matter of shame. What if the other party really wanted to kill them? Who knew how many people would die on their side? "Scram!" The old man from Huangtian Emperor's lineage said coldly. In fact, he was usually a good-tempered person. But today was very important to them. He was in a hurry to worship his ancestors. However, he was delayed by the people of the 7 major forces. Naturally, he was furious. However, he was not a bloodthirsty person. Therefore, he didn't attack the cultivators of the 7 major powers. He was reprimanded in front of everyone. The top experts of the 7 forces felt extremely aggrieved and furious. However, who asked the other party to be so powerful? This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. Not strong enough, being humiliated by others. No matter how aggrieved he was, he had to hold it in. No one would pity him. "Let's go." The old man, who was the leader of the 7 major forces, said in a deep voice. Then he didn't dare to stay any longer. He quickly flew into the distance. The rest of the people naturally didn't dare to stay any longer, although they hated the old man from Huangtian Emperor's bloodline to the core. However, they didn't dare to show it now. In the blink of an eye, the cultivators of the 7 major forces fled without a trace. The surrounding cultivators who were watching the show were all dumbfounded. Then, those cultivators began to discuss spiritedly. In the Forsaken Heaven region, he actually dared to tell the cultivators of the 7 major forces to scram. How domineering! After the people of the 7 major forces left, the descendants of Huangtian Emperor began to prepare to worship Huangtian Emperor. The old man stood at the front. The young girl stood beside the old man. Her body was slightly behind the old man by half a body. The rest of the people were divided into 3 rows and stood behind the old man. From the way they stood, it could be seen how extraordinary the young girl's identity was. These people all held a bunch of incense in their hands. The old man whispered, "A few days ago, I heard that the ancestor had not fallen. After receiving this news, I was very happy. This time, I led my clansmen to seek an audience with the ancestor. I hope that the ancestor can meet us." After chanting, the old man knelt in front of the altar. 3 kneels and 9 kowtows. The rest of the people followed the old man and knelt and kowtowed. After the sacrifice, these people inserted the lit incense in their hands into the incense burner. Then, they hoped that some miracle would happen. However, nothing happened. Lin Feng said, "Looks like the sacrifice is useless. I don't think the old man will give up. He will definitely go in and search." "Yes," Lung Zishi, Du Zhu, and the evil sovereign's sacred ancestor nodded. Ancestor, what should we do now?" The young girl looked at the old man and asked, "You guys wait outside. I'll go in." The old man said, "Ancestor, we'll go in with you." The group of people hurriedly said, "No need. It was too dangerous inside. It's useless to send so many people. I'll go in by myself." The old man said. The others also knew the old man's temper. Although they didn't insist, the young girl said, "Ancestor, let me go with you." "You can't go in either," the old man said. The young girl said, "I know you're worried about my safety, but I think that since the ancestor hasn't contacted us for so many years, he probably doesn't want to see us. Even if you go, the ancestor probably won't see you. However, if I go, the situation will be completely different." The old man frowned slightly, as if thinking about something. In the end, he nodded and said, "All right, then the 2 of us will go in together." Seeing that the old man had agreed, the young girl immediately nodded excitedly. They didn't stop and directly flew towards the wasteland ridge. "Ancestor, you have to be careful," the others reminded him. "We will." The old man and the young girl nodded. Very quickly, the 2 of them entered the wasteland ridge. "Let's go in as well," Lung Zishi said. Lin Feng said, "We won't go in now. Let's wait." "Why?" Lung Zishi asked, puzzled. "My blood is flowing very quickly. I feel that something terrifying might be coming out from the depths of the wasteland ridge. Let's wait for that terrifying existence to leave before going in," Lin Feng said. End of chapter. Chapter 53:15. The ability of sudden inspiration was not to be underestimated. This ability could often save a cultivator's life. It could allow a cultivator to avoid certain death. Lung Zishi and the others were well aware of this. When they heard Lin Feng's words, they couldn't help but tremble slightly. They didn't doubt Lin Feng's senses at all. That sense of danger hadn't disappeared. Lin Feng didn't know if the old man and the girl from Huangtian Emperor's bloodline would encounter that existence. Entering the barren heaven ridge was already a huge risk. That place was a place that ate people without leaving a single bone behind. The slightest carelessness could lead to a tragic death. On the second day, that sense of danger had finally disappeared. Lin Feng couldn't help but reveal a trace of joy on his face. That terrifying existence had already left? Perhaps so. Otherwise, how could that sense of danger disappear? Lin Feng said, "We can enter now, but everyone should be careful. This place is extremely dangerous. You can encounter terrifying things at any time." Everyone nodded. Even someone as fearless as Lung Zishi couldn't help but become serious at this moment. She wasn't stupid and naturally knew how dangerous it was inside. Entering a place like this, one had to be extra careful. Otherwise, one could die. Lin Feng's group of 4 flew towards the barren heaven ridge. Look, someone else went in. Some cultivators who were watching the barren heaven ridge pointed at Lin Feng's group. Then someone said, "There are always some people in this world who aren't afraid of death. They might think that they're lucky and can bring out some amazing things from the barren heaven ridge. But after entering the barren heaven ridge, they'll realize how stupid this idea is. Entering the barren heaven ridge is like stepping into hell." Another cultivator said, the barren heaven ridge was indeed terrifying. To cultivators, it was a place they couldn't touch. As for Lin Feng's group, they naturally didn't hear the cultivators' discussion. They entered the barren heaven ridge. The barren heaven ridge was filled with a faint brown gas. So, the visibility was not particularly high. The scene beyond 100 meters was not particularly clear. The aura of this place was extremely eerie and terrifying. "Our target is the 7th mountain," Lin Feng said. Now, Lin Feng planned to look for the stone scripture. As for whether or not he was going to look for Huang Tiandi, he would make plans after he found the stone scripture. After all, Heavenly Emperor Huang was in the deepest part of the barren heaven ridge. How difficult would it be to enter the deepest part to find him? Lin Feng also knew how dangerous and difficult this was. Therefore, for the time being, it was best to take things one step at a time. I've heard of the sage's stone scripture many times. Now, I'm finally going to see it, Lung Zishi said excitedly. In fact, many people had heard of the stone scriptures of the celestial masters. This was a heaven-defying treasure, a supreme treasure nurtured by the heavens and earth. Its value was unimaginable. Lin Feng led everyone deeper into the forest. Along the way, they saw many skeletons. There were cultivators' skeletons, as well as some ferocious beast skeletons. The cultivators' skeletons were probably cultivators who had died in the barren heaven ridge. The ferocious beast skeletons were uncertain. It was possible that the ferocious beasts outside had entered the barren heaven ridge. They had died in the barren heaven ridge, or they could have been killed by the ferocious beasts inside. However, Lin Feng felt that they were ferocious beasts outside. The ferocious beasts inside the barren heaven ridge were usually extremely powerful. Therefore, it would not be easy to kill them. Whoosh! Suddenly, a black thing flew toward Duzu, then bit Duzu's neck gently. Duzu was in pain. He grabbed the thing. "Devil ant!" After seeing that thing, Duzu exclaimed. Then, Duzu's face began to darken. Duzu almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, the evil dominator divine ancestor supported him. Duzu was known as the ancestor of all poisons. However, after being bitten by the devil ant, he was deeply poisoned. This was too inconceivable. If someone else was bitten by the devil ant, wouldn't they die without a burial place? Just thinking about it made one's hair stand on end. Duzu said, "Let's go." The devil ants live in groups. They are definitely one of the most poisonous creatures in the world. They are very aggressive. If we are surrounded by them, we will definitely die. Hearing this, Lin Feng and the others' faces changed. Let's go. Follow behind me. Don't get lost." Lin Feng said in a low voice. He quickly rushed forward. The void was densely covered with countless restrictions. These restrictions were invisible to the naked eye. Other than the restrictions, there were also many natural places of death. Once one fell into those places of death, only death would await them. Fortunately, Lin Feng was powerful. He led everyone through quickly. They avoided many restrictions and places of death. There are devil ants behind us, the demonic dominator divine ancestor said with an ugly expression. Lin Feng looked behind them and saw a large number of devil ants flying towards them. If they were caught by those devil ants, they would definitely die. Lin Feng quickly summoned his insect swarm. The insect swarm flew towards the devil ants. They engaged in a fierce battle with the devil ants. Lin Feng and the others took advantage of this opportunity to quickly leave. However, the insect swarm that Lin Feng summoned was completely annihilated. Lin Feng couldn't help but feel his heart ache. In order to stop the devil ants, he had lost a third of his insect swarm. Damn it! Lin Feng couldn't help but curse. Encountering such a situation was indeed a bit vexing. At this time, Duzu's body wasn't doing well. He needed the demonic dominator divine ancestor to carry him forward. Duzu, how are you? Lin Feng looked worriedly at Duzu. Duzu grinned. I've been hunting geese all day, but today I got pecked in the eye by one. I didn't expect the devil ants to be so poisonous. But don't worry, young master. I won't die. I need a good rest. I'll be able to recover soon. Lin Feng nodded. He led the others to a cave and then sealed it with restrictions. Everyone needed to catch their breath. Duzu's body was sometimes cold and sometimes hot. It was only after midnight that everything returned to normal. Lin Feng and the others could finally relax. 2 hours later, Duzu opened his eyes. Have you recovered? Lin Feng asked. I've recovered. Duzu nodded, and then said with a smile, not only have I recovered, but I've also gained benefits. Perhaps I'll be able to break through soon. Hearing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel happy for Duzu. It seemed that the devil ant's poison had become the catalyst for Duzu's breakthrough. Duzu had broken through again. That was the true immortal realm. Once he broke through to the true immortal realm, he would shed his mortal body. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website, Chapter 53:16. It was too late at night to go out. The later it was, the more dangerous it would be to go out. But at around 3 in the morning, Lin Feng and the others heard the sounds of fighting coming from the depths of the forest. There were roaring sounds. At the same time, they sensed powerful energy fluctuations. There's a huge battle in the depths. The demonic sovereign said. Lin Feng nodded. There was indeed a huge battle in the depths. Lung Zishi said. Could it be that the old man and girl from the Huang Tian Emperor's bloodline were attacked by some terrifying creatures in the Forbidden Zone? That's possible. Lin Feng said. After thinking for a moment, Lin Feng added, but it's also possible that some of the creatures in the Barren Heaven Ridge are fighting each other. They're not united, and it's the law of the jungle. The night was not peaceful. The battle, it didn't end until dawn. The Barren Heaven Ridge regained its peace, as if nothing had happened. However, everyone knew what kind of terrifying thing had happened in the Barren Heaven Ridge. We need to hurry. Hopefully, we can reach that place as soon as possible. Lin Feng said. The others nodded. Under Lin Feng's lead, the group continued deeper into the Barren Heaven Ridge. During the day, some terrifying creatures would appear in the Barren Heaven Ridge. However, during the day, there were far fewer creatures than during the night. Lin Feng and the others were attacked by a crow in the 4th mountain range. Crows represented bad luck, especially the crow's cry. It sounded eerie and terrifying. The crow was very powerful. Lin Feng and the others joined forces to fight it. However, they were still no match for the crow. "I will eat your souls." The crow spoke. Lin Feng and the others didn't find it strange that the crow could speak. After all, it was a crow from the Forbidden Zone. It was not an ordinary crow. In the outside world, crows were considered low-level creatures. However, in the Forbidden Zone, everything was different. The crow wanted to kill Lin Feng and the others. The situation was dangerous. At that moment, Lung Zishi took out a treasure. It was a supreme treasure similar to the deity whipping whip. However, it was clear that it was not a god striking whip. Instead, it was called a demon's striking whip. Its power was extremely tyrannical. As long as he pulled it out, he would definitely be able to hit that crow. This was a forbidden artifact. There was only one last chance left. Originally, Lung Zishi didn't want to use this treasure. However, if they didn't use this treasure now, they might be killed by this annoying crow. Therefore, only then did Lung Zishi take out this powerful supreme treasure. "That's not fair. If you put down this treasure and fight, I'll kill you like a bunch of ants," Crow said angrily. "Are you stupid? Why should I put down this treasure?" Lung Zishi said speechlessly. "I'll beat you to death. I'll beat you to death." Lung Zishi continued to attack Crow with the demon lashing whip. Whip after whip struck Crow's body. Many feathers on Crow's body fell off. Lin Feng felt some curse power from those feathers, which made Lin Feng very surprised. He looked at Crow and said, "You're a cursed creature?" "No, you're actually not a crow. You're a cultivator, but you've already lost your physical body. Your soul is sealed in Crow's body. Am I right?" Don't talk about this. Don't talk about this. Don't talk about this." Crow immediately screamed. For it, this was something it never wanted to remember. It really wanted to forget that it was a cultivator. However, it couldn't forget all of this. Everything in the past. It was torturing it. This caused Crow to feel incomparable pain. It quickly flew into the distance and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Seeing Crow fly away, Lin Feng couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Although the demon lashing whip in Lung Zishi's hand was powerful, it was still a forbidden weapon after all. Lin Feng discovered that although Crow was being beaten until it cried out loudly, but in reality, it didn't suffer any fatal injuries, and the power of the demon lashing whip was constantly weakening. When the demon lashing whip couldn't be used, it would be dangerous. However, Lin Feng discovered Crow's secret. So he used words to provoke Crow. This kind of cursed creature was often very sensitive. Especially, the existence that was sealed in Crow's body was an expert that could call the wind and summon the rain outside. However, it had lost its physical body and was sealed in the body of a crow. This was a huge blow to it. This kind of thing was definitely something it didn't want to remember the most. And the actual situation was just as Lin Feng had guessed. When Lin Feng said this matter, that guy really couldn't take it. He quickly left. "It's getting late. Let's find a place to hide," Lin Feng said. He didn't want to travel at night, especially in a place like the Life Forbidden Zone. If they traveled at night, it would be too dangerous. Who knew what kind of things they would encounter at night? Of course, hiding wasn't necessarily safe because some existences had incomparably strong perception. Even if they hid, they might be discovered by those existences. When the time came, they would still be attacked, but there was one thing that was very important. The probability of being discovered while hiding was much lower than being discovered outside the Life Forbidden Zone. Lin Feng and the others once again found a hidden place to rest. It was a dry cave. The area wasn't small. Lin Feng used a restriction to seal the entrance. Then they began to rest and recover. The sky was getting dark. Gradually, it became dark. The aura in the life forbidden zone became colder and colder. From time to time, they could hear the roars of beasts coming from the forest. Around dawn, a cold and gloomy aura seeped into the cave from the outside. When they felt this cold aura, Lin Feng and the others were alarmed. Their expressions became extremely unsightly. They hurriedly got up and went to the entrance of the cave. They looked outside. They saw a mass of darkness coming in from outside. That mass of darkness, it was a light that swallowed everything. In the darkness, who knew what kind of terrifying existence was hibernating? The existence in the darkness seemed to have discovered Lin Feng and the others. This is going to be troublesome. Lin Feng's expression became gloomy. If they were discovered by these terrifying existences at night, it would be extremely dangerous, because if a battle broke out, it was very likely that the other life forbidden zones would be attracted. When that time came, they would be surrounded by many life forbidden zones, and it would be difficult for them to escape. End of chapter. Chapter 53:17. What should we do now? Lung Zishi asked. Even with her fearless personality, she couldn't help but be extremely worried. No one could remain calm. The situation in front of them was extremely dangerous. If they were careless, he would die, and his Tao would vanish. Why don't we break out of the encirclement? Think of a way to get rid of this guy. We can't let it hold us back. Otherwise, when the other creatures of the restricted area are attracted over, it will be even more troublesome. Du Zhu said. Lin Feng said, let's wait and see. Let's see if there's a chance for things to turn around. Everyone nodded. They were all very nervous. The darkness was approaching. Not long after, the darkness arrived outside. But at this moment, the darkness actually left quickly. It actually left. That's really strange. Du Zhu couldn't help but mutter. This was indeed strange. That guy actually left without a sound. Previously, Lin Feng and the others thought that this battle was inevitable. Why did this happen? Lin Feng couldn't help but say, even though he really wanted to see some turning point. However, when the turning point really came, Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter. What exactly happened? Could it be that there's some terrifying existence in this place? Lung Zishi said, although the cave isn't small, we've already observed it. How could there be any terrifying existence? Lin Feng said, then what's going on? Lung Zishi said doubtfully, let's look around again. Lin Feng said, the few of them separated. They started a carpet search. They still didn't find anything special, other than a pile of useless rocks. There was nothing else. That's not right. There's something wrong with that pile of useless rocks. Suddenly, Lin Feng seemed to have discovered something. He looked at the pile of rocks again, because he did notice that something was wrong. It was a pile of discarded stones. It gave Lin Feng a very strange feeling. This feeling is like the pile of discarded stones did not look like a pile of stones. Instead, it was like a corpse lying on the ground. Lin Feng didn't know why he had such a strange feeling. However, Lin Feng planned to carefully examine the pile of stones. He came to the side of the pile of rocks and tried to pry them apart. What did you find? Lung Zishi, Du Zhu, the evil dominator, and the divine ancestors also came over after noticing the situation. Lung Zishi looked at Lin Feng and asked. Lin Feng said, I feel that there's something special about this pile of stones. I want to see if there's anything special about them. In the end, Lin Feng completely pried open the stone. Then, there was a look of surprise on his face, because, under the waste rocks, Lin Feng actually found a head. This was the head of a stone man. Of course, it could also be a sculpture. But Lin Feng felt that it shouldn't be a sculpture. If it was just a sculpture's head, how could it scare away the darkness? Could it be that a stone man fell here? Duzu said. Lin Feng nodded his head. There was really such a possibility. An extremely tyrannical stone man had finally fallen in this place. What puzzled Lin Feng the most was that after the stone man's body shattered, there didn't seem to be any powerful aura emitted. Why? Did that mass of darkness still leave? This was something that he couldn't understand, because Lin Feng didn't feel any aura of life from the broken stone man, logically speaking. Such a stone man should no longer be a threat. But that wasn't the case. Lin Feng tried to take the stone man's head out of the waste rocks. The head was almost split in half. Lin Feng's palm was cut by the edges. Fresh blood flowed out. What sharp edges! It's definitely a stone man's body. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so sharp. Lin Feng said. The others nodded. After Lin Feng took out the stone man's head, after carefully observing it, he found that there was nothing special about the stone man's head. It had long lost all vitality and was no different from an ordinary stone. I think it's better to bury him so that he can rest in peace. Lung Zishi said. Lin Feng nodded his head and put the stone man's head back, then piled up the stones again. Then he stood up and bowed 3 times. Then he said, Senior, this junior didn't mean to offend you. I hope you can forgive me. I hope you can rest in peace here. Lung Zishi, Duzu, and the evil dominator also bowed 3 times towards the pile of stones. After doing this, Lin Feng and the others went to rest. In the following time, no more terrifying existences discovered Lin Feng and the others. Of course, it was also possible that some terrifying existences discovered Lin Feng and the others, but those terrifying existences didn't dare to come here. In the end, they all left. The next day, after Lin Feng and the others left the cave, they continued to walk deeper into the mountain. In the afternoon, they successfully arrived at the 7th mountain. They walked towards the depths of the 7th mountain. The 7th mountain was naturally very dangerous. There was a large area in the depths. It wasn't easy to find a cave. Lin Feng and the others began to search for that cave. They found more than 10 caves and searched them one by one, but they didn't find anything. We've searched all the caves, but why isn't the cave where the stone scripture is? Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. He tried to circulate the stone emperor scripture passed down by the celestial masters. This was a cultivation technique that the cultivators of the celestial masters mainly cultivated. It was a mysterious cultivation technique that was passed down from the stone scripture. Lin Feng hoped to use the stone emperor scripture. It could be used to communicate with the celestial master's sacred item, the stone scripture. After circulating the stone emperor scripture, Lin Feng indeed felt a special aura. That special aura seemed to be calling out to Lin Feng. Lin Feng walked towards the left side of the cave. After a short time, he stopped because there was a gigantic cliff. There was no path ahead. Is this our final destination? Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter. A loud rumbling sound was heard. About 100 meters above the rock wall, a large number of rock walls suddenly collapsed. Then rubble fell down. Lin Feng and the others quickly retreated to avoid being hit by the rubble. When they looked up, they saw that there was no one there. A huge cave had appeared where the rock wall had collapsed. Could it be that the stone scripture is in that cave? Lung Zishi immediately became excited. Lin Feng nodded and said, It might really be in that cave. Let's go up and take a look. When Lin Feng finished talking, he started flying towards the cave. He entered the cave. The rest of the people followed closely behind and entered the cave one after another. End of chapter. Chapter 53:18. The cave was deep and serene. It exuded a gloomy aura. After sensing the qi inside the cave, Lin Feng didn't find it strange at all. Was there a pure land in this place? At the very least, Lin Feng had yet to discover where the Pure Land was. Although this was a cave that had just appeared, Lin Feng and the others were still very careful, who knew whether or not a terrifying thing would suddenly jump out from inside. After walking for about 15 minutes, Lin Feng and the others saw the belly of a mountain. It seemed that they were about to reach their destination. Finally, they entered the belly of the mountain. After entering the belly of the mountain, they saw an altar in the middle of the mountain. A table was placed on top of the altar. A stone scripture was placed on the table. When Lin Feng saw the stone scripture, his eyes lit up. The stone scripture was really here. They had finally found the stone scripture. This was really good news. However, Lin Feng did not act rashly because the stone scripture was placed on the altar. Why was the stone scripture placed on the altar? What was the origin of the altar? What was the purpose of the altar? Who built this altar? These were all things that Lin Feng did not understand. Therefore, Lin Feng wanted to observe, for now. He wanted to see what was going on. There seems to be something wrong with this altar, Lung Zishi said. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Lung Zishi and asked, "What's wrong?" Lung Zishi said, "I've seen an altar before. That altar was very similar to this one." The altar that Lung Zishi saw should be the one that appeared in the wasteland. However, Lin Feng did not know what the altar was used for. But it must be extraordinary, right? What's so special about the altar you're talking about? Lin Feng asked curiously. That altar killed a ruler before, Lung Zishi said. Hiss. Lin Feng could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This altar had once crushed a hegemon to death. The sovereign that Lung Zishi mentioned was the sovereign of the wasteland. Lin Feng didn't know how powerful the ruler of the wasteland was. The only thing he was clear about was ordinary Saint Realm experts. None of them were qualified to become the ruler of the wasteland. This was the terror of the ruler of the wastelands. If someone had told Lin Feng that the ruler of the wasteland had surpassed the Saint Realm, he would have been shocked. Lin Feng wouldn't find it strange. Everything was possible. What ruler? Where had the sovereign been killed? Even though they're all sovereigns, there's still a hierarchy between them. At that moment, the poison ancestor spoke. Du Zhu didn't know much about Lung Zishi. He didn't even know Lung Zishi's background. He only knew that there was some ambiguity between Lin Feng and Lung Zishi. Other than that, he did not know anything else. Lung Zishi replied, "The ruler of the wastelands." Du Zhu and the heretical sovereign's sacred ancestors' lips twitched violently after hearing this. Wasteland. What a resounding name. The reputation of the wastelands even surpassed that of the three supreme realms. It was a truly chaotic place, and one that was on the level of a higher realm. Think about it. The top experts of the celestial realm, the primal chaos, the Xianhuang realm, the netherworld, and the other realms would all head to the wastelands. Apart from that, even the races that had transcended epics would compete in the wastelands. Du Zhu and the heretical sovereign sacred ancestor had never expected this. Lung Zishi, this crazy girl who was always boisterous and violent, was actually a cultivator from the wastelands. This truly shocked Du Zhu and the heretical sovereign sacred ancestor. Lin Feng asked curiously, "How did that altar kill that existence?" Lung Zishi replied, "I'm not too sure about the specifics. After all, it's been too long. But there's one thing I remember clearly, and that's that there are too many similarities between the two altars. Thus, when we face such an altar, we have to be extra careful." Lin Feng couldn't help but rub his chin. Lung Zishi's warning was very important. However, if he wanted to obtain the Stone Sutra, he had to take a risk. Otherwise, everything would be for naught. Lin Feng circled the altar and observed it. He couldn't find anything special. Lin Feng continued to cultivate the Stone Emperor's Sutra. At that moment, the Stone Emperor's Sutra on the altar seemed to sense something. It actually emitted a slight fluctuation. When he saw this, Lin Feng immediately revealed a look of joy. Lin Feng tried to take the Stone Emperor's Sutra out through the air. However, the Stone Emperor's Sutra seemed to be frozen. No matter how hard Lin Feng tried, he couldn't take it out through the air. It seemed that there was only one way to take the Stone Emperor's Sutra, and that was to ascend the altar. The Stone Emperor's Sutra can sense me, whether or not there's any danger. I need to ascend the altar and take the Stone Emperor's Sutra. Wait for me outside. Don't rashly enter the altar to avoid any accidents. Lin Feng said. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but nod. Everyone knew that Lin Feng's methods were powerful. Therefore, they didn't want to cause trouble for Lin Feng. Lin Feng took a deep breath and walked towards the altar. Soon, Lin Feng ascended the altar. Originally, Lin Feng and the others were very nervous. However, Lin Feng ascended the altar. The altar didn't change at all. This scene made everyone feel a little relieved. Lin Feng also felt a little relieved. Lin Feng walked towards the Stone Emperor's Sutra. As he got closer to the Stone Emperor's Sutra, Lin Feng discovered that the fluctuations of the Stone Emperor's Sutra were becoming more and more intense. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. Actually, Lin Feng was worried that the Stone Emperor's Sutra wouldn't recognize him as its master. This kind of thing often happened in the world of cultivators. Now, it seemed that the Stone Emperor's Sutra wouldn't resist his refinement. Lin Feng reached out and picked up the Stone Emperor's Sutra. The moment Lin Feng picked up the Stone Emperor's Sutra, the entire altar began to shake violently. Lin Feng's expression couldn't help but change slightly. Picking up the Stone Emperor's Sutra, there was a terrifying change. Lin Feng quickly put the Stone Emperor's Sutra back to its original place, hoping that everything would return to normal. However, even though Lin Feng put the Stone Emperor's Sutra back to its original place, the altar was still shaking violently. Crack! Crack! The sound of cracking could be heard. There were many cracks around the altar. After seeing those cracks, Lin Feng didn't even think and quickly rushed out. Go! Lin Feng shouted in a deep voice. Everyone didn't dare to hesitate. He hurriedly rushed outside. But at this moment, something terrible happened. An extremely powerful demonic aura escaped from the broken altar. The demonic aura covered the sky and covered the sun. It directly blocked the way out. Lin Feng and the others were trapped in the belly of the mountain. End of chapter. Chapter 53:19. Damn, this is really troublesome. Are we like turtles in a jar now? Duzu cried out gloomily. Lin Feng rolled his eyes. This guy really didn't know how to use adjectives. Was there a need to use the word turtle to describe himself? Even if there was, it should be used to describe others. Lin Feng looked at the broken altar. The altar was still cracking. Following that, the altar began to crack. A terrifying aura began to emanate from the altar. The aura was simply too terrifying. It made one's hair stand on end. Crack! Suddenly, a hand reached out from under the broken altar. It was a hand that had already rotted away. Beneath the altar, it seemed that a terrifying being had been suppressed here. Lin Feng recalled the matter that Lung Zishi had mentioned earlier. There was a similar altar in the wasteland that had suppressed a wasteland overlord to death. It seemed that this altar had a similar function. Someone had wanted to use this altar to suppress this being, and the stone scripture was very likely the key. Or perhaps the stone scripture was the core of the altar. The moment Lin Feng picked up the stone scripture, the core of the altar had been destroyed. Thus, The being below was about to come out. At this point, it was useless for Lin Feng to put the stone scripture back. Thank you for letting me out. Thank you for letting me out. I will thank you properly. I will thank you properly. A hoarse voice came from beneath the altar. When he heard the hoarse voice, Lin Feng could not help but smile bitterly. That hoarse voice, it didn't sound like it belonged to a kind person. As for the words, thank you properly, Lin Feng did not believe it at all. As long as you let me out. Yours truly was already thanking the heavens and earth. Lin Feng said, being helpful has always been one of my outstanding qualities. Apart from that, I am also someone who does not ask for anything in return. So, please let me go now. Let you go? Impossible. Impossible. I still haven't repaid you. How can I let you go? The existence below the altar said. Crack, crack. The altar was crumbling more and more violently. An ugly head poked out from under the altar. It was a head that had already decayed, so it was impossible to tell what this guy's original appearance was. His aura was incomparably evil. He crawled out from under the broken altar. This being was about 2 meters tall. His entire body had already decayed to the extreme. But Lin Feng found out, even though its body had decayed to such an extent, it wasn't dead, so it wasn't an evil ghost. Instead, it was a living being that was truly alive. But what kind of race did this creature belong to? Lin Feng's heart was filled with questions. Seeing this creature being chained by 4 thick chains, Yi Zichen was shocked. Lin Feng and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Hee, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. The situation isn't that bad. Duzu chuckled. The terrifying spirit looked at Lin Feng and asked, Are you a disciple of the celestial teacher's branch? Although the creature was bound, Lin Feng was worried that it might have some other terrifying means. If that was the case, it would be very troublesome. The altar that had sealed this being had the sage's branch's holy artifact, the stone scripture. Lin Feng guessed that it might have been an ancestor of the sage's branch that had sealed this being. Lin Feng naturally wouldn't choose to admit that he was a successor of the sage's branch at a time like this. Otherwise, wouldn't he be hated to death by this terrifying being? And so Lin Feng said, I'm not. You're not. Then why did you come here to take the stone scripture? The terrifying being asked. Lin Feng said, We accidentally entered this place and saw the stone scripture. We didn't know what the stone scripture was, so we casually took it. We didn't expect that it would actually release you. Congratulations. In truth, Lin Feng was cursing inwardly. You bastard, how many years have you been sealed? Why haven't you been sealed to death yet? I really hope that you've been sealed to death here. Is the heavens blind? If the heavens had eyes, they would have sealed you to death long ago. Then there wouldn't be so many problems and we wouldn't have to be so worried. Those words, Lin Feng could only curse inwardly. It was better not to provoke this terrifying being. Hee, that's why I have to thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to escape. If it weren't for you, I would have been dead. The terrifying being said. Lin Feng asked, Who sealed you? The terrifying being said, I was sealed by someone from the sage's branch. However, that person didn't have it easy either. He suffered a backlash while trying to seal me. I think that he should have died here. Lin Feng's heart couldn't help but sink. As expected, it was the ancestor of the sage's branch who had sealed this guy. Unfortunately, that ancestor had met with a calamity. Lin Feng had the urge to cut this guy into pieces. Lin Feng asked, Why did that expert from the sage's branch seal you? It's because I came from a world that can't be mentioned. The terrifying being said. What? The expressions of Lin Feng and the others changed drastically. This guy had actually come from the world of the mastermind. You Lin Feng, and the others pointed at this guy, speechless. That was the era when Sciention life forms ruled the universe. There were too many powerful Sciention life forms, and many Sciention life forms wanted to transcend their limits. If they were allowed to transcend their limits, it would be extremely troublesome. Therefore, His Excellency sent us, the 36 devil generals, to the starry sky world, and then secretly instigated the relationship between the strong cultivators. We assassinated some of them, and then framed the murderers on others. This kind of conflict became more and more serious, and the misunderstanding between the strong cultivators grew deeper and deeper. Finally, the strong cultivators of different camps couldn't suppress their hatred anymore. Therefore, the camps started fighting, and countless strong cultivators died. What a nostalgic era. Looking at those dead Sciention cultivators was really exciting. Later, most of those Sciention cultivators died in battle, and the era of Sciention cultivators came to an end. Those Sciention cultivators couldn't pose a threat to our world anymore, said Lin Feng, smiling. The terrifying being said sinisterly. The more Lin Feng heard, the uglier his expression became. Obviously, these people were the ones who had instigated the Sciention experts' war. After the war, the cultivation system had collapsed. That was until his ancestor, the Master of Gods, had risen to power and created a new cultivation system. Only then had the world of cultivators returned to the right track. Please remember the domain name of this book, mobile version of this book. Chapter 5320. Damn it, I really can't take it anymore. I want to cut you to death right now. Duzu cursed loudly. Lin Feng also wanted to curse. This guy, really a bastard. The people from the mastermind's world should really be cut into 1,000 pieces. Couldn't everyone live in peace? Why? Why must they enslave others? Human nature was often the most terrifying thing. Human nature could make people make all kinds of choices. For example, to enslave others, to kill others, and then to control others' lives and fates. Many people liked this feeling. They liked the feeling of being in control of everything. For example, the people from the mastermind's world. There are many people who want to kill me, but those people were all killed by me in the end. The terrifying existence laughed out loud. It was indeed, as he said, in order to destroy these people from the mastermind's world. In this era, how many experts had been sacrificed? However, there were still many experts who came forward one after another. Even if they knew that there was a slim chance of survival, they had no regrets because they needed to protect their loved ones, their families, their relatives, their friends. Lin Feng said, "But looking at you, living seems to be more painful than dying." This terrifying existence sneered and said, "As long as you are alive, there is hope." This guy was right. There was only hope if you were alive. If you were dead, everything would be for nothing. Now, I should repay you for saving my life. In order to repay you for saving my life, I have decided to eat you. This terrifying existence said sinisterly. After hearing this guy's words, Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter in his heart. It was just as he had guessed. This guy, he definitely didn't have good intentions. "You are trapped here. Do you still want to kill us?" Duzu curled his lips and said, "Naturally, I have a way to kill you." The terrifying existence said with a cold smile. Lin Feng frowned slightly. In fact, he had always been worried that this guy still had some terrifying methods. Now, it seemed that this guy really did have some powerful methods. Kacha, 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 kacha. At this moment, the terrifying being broke the 4 chains that were binding his body. After seeing this scene, the corners of Lin Feng and the others' mouths couldn't help but twitch violently. No wonder this guy was so confident. So it was because this guy was actually able to break free from the chains binding his body. This was not good news for Lin Feng and the others. Now, do you feel fear? The terrifying existence said with a cold smile. He walked step by step towards Lin Feng and the others. Fighting is one thing, but can you stay away from us? You're so smelly. You're going to kill me, Lung Zishi shouted. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. What kind of situation was this? And he was still complaining that the other party was smelly. This terrifying existence couldn't help but be taken aback. Then his face became extremely gloomy. His eyes flashed with dense killing intent. He said coldly, I used to be a clean freak, but now I've become like this. Do you think I want to become like this? A great and noble being like me should live a life of elegance and nobility, not become like this. Lin Feng could see that the cultivator in front of him was extremely angry at his current state. Actually, this was normal. It was just as this guy had said. He was a being from the Mastermind's world, and he was also one of the 36 demon generals under the Mastermind's command. An existence like this felt that he was high and mighty, and that the other races were inferior. Therefore, he had very high standards for himself. In terms of quality of life, he had extremely high standards. However, that was in the past. His current state was really miserable. If you can't live the way you want to, why don't you just kill yourself? Duzu said, Kill myself? Of course not. I'll slowly recover. The terrifying existence said in a sinister voice. Of course, Duzu was only teasing him. No one expected this guy to actually kill himself. At this moment, this horrifying existence punched out across the void. Bang! This punch. It ruthlessly slammed into Duzu's body. Crack, crack! Duzu's chest caved in, and his body was sent flying. Wah! He spat out large mouthfuls of blood in midair. You're still so damn strong. Duzu wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Bang! This terrifying existence once again threw out a punch across the void. This time, the punch landed on Duzu's face. Duzu's face. It was completely deformed. His body moved horizontally. Clang! A loud sound rang out. Duzu's body slammed into the stone wall. Duzu's body fell to the ground, and he couldn't help but howl in pain. How pitifully weak. The terrifying existence said in a sinister voice, Attack together. Lin Feng said in a low voice, There was no other way. They could only face this guy head-on. Lin Feng temporarily put away the stone scripture. He took out the ruler's armor. The ruler's armor protected Lin Feng. At the same time, Lin Feng took out the epic war spear. He took the lead and attacked the terrifying existence. Duzu, Lung Zishi, and the evil dominator all took out their supreme treasures and attacked the terrifying existence together with Lin Feng. Bang, 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 bang. The terrifying existence punched out from the void at Lin Feng and the others. Along with the sound of the violent collision, there was a loud bang. Lin Feng and the others were bombarded by an invisible and intangible strength. They were all sent flying. Lin Feng was shocked. This guy was really too terrifying. The four of them were no match for this terrifying existence. You're just an ant. What do you have to fight me? The terrifying existence said in a sinister voice. He was indeed qualified to say such words. In the past, he was one of the 36 demon generals under the world dominator. His combat power was indeed terrifying, and he had a near-immortal body. Otherwise, after being suppressed for so many years, he should have died long ago. The reason he was still alive was because his body was too monstrous. Now, let's end this. The terrifying existence waved his hand, and Lin Feng and the others were immediately imprisoned. Their bodies flew into the air. Lin Feng and the others struggled, but they couldn't break free. Damn it! Lin Feng's expression was extremely ugly. He wanted to use the 8-9 arcane art to increase his combat power by 33 times to fight this terrifying existence to the death. However, at that moment, the sound of footsteps came from outside. End of chapter. Chapter 53:21. After hearing the footsteps, everyone looked towards the entrance. At this moment, everyone saw a stone man pass through the black fog that sealed the mountain. Then he entered the mountain. When he saw the stone man, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know why. In his mind, the broken stone man that he saw before appeared. This feeling was very strange. Even Lin Feng himself didn't know why such a thought would appear. Who are you? The terrifying existence looked at the stone man. Probably. He also felt that the stone man was not to be trifled with. The stone man ignored the terrifying existence and looked at Lin Feng instead. After seeing the stone man's gaze, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Just now, that thought in his mind was real. The stone man in front of him. Was it really the broken stone man? After thinking of this, Lin Feng couldn't help but gasp. The broken stone man's body was clearly broken. How could it be reconstructed? At that time, he had investigated. Indeed, he couldn't detect any life aura from the broken stone man. Strange. It was really strange. Of course, this was still Lin Feng's guess for the time being. Was the stone man the broken stone man? Lin Feng didn't know yet. At this moment, the stone man stretched out his right hand and gently pointed at Lin Feng and the others. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt the power that imprisoned his body disappeared. Obviously, the stone man helped Lin Feng and the others to dissolve the power that the terrifying creature used to imprison Lin Feng and the others. What do you mean? The terrifying creature's eyes suddenly became gloomy. You can't touch these people. The stone man said. Why? The terrifying existence asked. I have to repay the favor of saving my life. The stone man said. He is. Lung Zishi couldn't help but exclaim. She probably thought of the stone man's origin. The stone man was resurrected. It was really unbelievable. Lin Feng thought of how the stone man's had cut his palm and his blood stained the stone man's head. Could it be? That was the reason. Stone man. Was he resurrected in the end? Other than this reason, Lin Feng really couldn't think of any other reason. And Lin Feng felt that it was most likely because of this reason. Hee, saving your life? What a joke. I'll give you a chance to leave as soon as possible. I won't bicker with you. If you don't leave, you won't be able to leave even if you want to. The terrifying existence said, This guy, he is threatening the stone golem. Of course, he was indeed powerful. The stone man should also be very strong. Or else, this terrifying existence had already made his move. Instead of speaking so much to the golem, I'm not leaving. Let's battle. The stone man said. He took the initiative to attack, directly charging towards that terrifying existence. The stone man threw a punch at the terrifying existence. Humph! That terrifying existence sneered. Without any fear, he threw a punch at the stone man. Bang! Along with the violent collision sound, the two sides collided fiercely. That tyrannical power caused the void to shatter. The earth was shaking violently. Their attacks seemed to be very simple. In fact, they all contained the power of the Tao law. Therefore, their attacks, they were all incomparably terrifying. Bang, bang, bang. The two existences fought together, one punch after another, shaking the earth and mountains. Lin Feng originally wanted to find an opportunity to help. However, he discovered that when he wanted to get close, An invisible force quickly surged over. That invisible force forced Lin Feng back. Lin Feng knew that invisible force. It was actually the aura formed when these two experts fought. Unless one reached their level, one could break through the aura and enter the battlefield. Otherwise, one couldn't enter the battlefield at all. Stone Man, one of the innate life forms. Your race. It's really not simple. The terrifying existence said, "What about your race? You're not much nobler than the people of our world. Why should our fate be controlled by your hands?" The Stone Man said coldly. It seemed that the Stone Man recognized the origin of this terrifying existence. And from this terrifying existence's words, it seemed that they could deduce the origin of the Stone Man. Stone Man. He was an innate life form, ancient and powerful. No wonder he could be resurrected, this kind of innate life form. And one of the stone race's innate life forms definitely had terrifying means. Such an existence, being able to be resurrected, it wasn't too surprising. Of course my race is the noblest race. Only some foolish people think that they can compare to my race. No other race can compare to my race. They're far inferior to be enslaved by my race. It's the luck of your race, the terrifying existence said. His tone was still as arrogant as ever. Hee, is that so? Then I'll destroy your body and soul. Let's see if you're still as arrogant as you are now. The Stone Man sneered. His attacks became more and more tyrannical. Bang, bang, bang. He collided with the terrifying existence dozens of times in a row. The terrifying existence was gradually at a disadvantage. Seeing this scene, Lin Feng and the others couldn't help but be excited. An expert of the stone race. How powerful. Senior, you can do it. We're your strongest supporters. Lung Zishi shouted. *CK, that bastard to death. Duzu shouted. Lin Feng and the demonic sovereign didn't shout. But they were still excited. The Stone Man's attacks were still increasing, and the terrifying existence was being suppressed more and more. He was furious. He roared. If I hadn't just escaped, how could you have suppressed me? Saying all this is useless. You can't change anything. The Stone Man's expression was indifferent. That terrifying existence said, "Do you think that victory is already in your grasp? If that's the case, then you're gravely mistaken." As soon as he finished speaking, light flashed in his hand. A supreme treasure appeared. It was a treasured sword forged from a meteorite, and it emitted a cold light. He wielded the sword and swept it towards the Stone Man. Slash! The stone golem's body was actually torn open by the sword, leaving behind a huge wound. The Stone Man's blood. Immediately, it flowed out. How is this possible? Lin Feng and the others shouted in disbelief. What was the most powerful thing about the stone race? It was their physical body. The stone race's physical body was unparalleled, especially the stone men. Their bodies were even more terrifying, and they were invulnerable. However, the terrifying existence easily tore the Stone Man's body apart with the help of a magic treasure. This was too inconceivable, wasn't it? His attack didn't seem to have landed on the Stone Man's body. Instead, it seemed to have landed on a piece of tofu. This was too illogical. However, all of this was real. End of chapter. Chapter 53:22. The opponent's weapon was so powerful that the golem had no choice but to retreat. This treasure of mine is called the Stone Beheading Sword. Do you know what it's used for? The purpose of this treasure is to deal with you stone tribe creatures. This treasure, it can destroy all the life force of you stone tribe creatures and cause extremely serious damage to you stone tribe creatures. The terrifying existence said in a sinister voice. Indeed, it was as this guy had said. The stone beheading sword had indeed caused extremely serious damage to the golem. Such a tyrannical treasure was really too terrifying. It was simply hair-raising. Although the golem was powerful, everything in the world had a counter. With the stone beheading sword in hand, the terrifying existence would have a huge advantage. It was very likely that the golem would be killed by him. Die. The terrifying existence sneered, wanting to kill the golem in one go. He quickly rushed towards the golem. But at that moment, Lin Feng summoned the 5 stone swords. He shouted, "Senior, you can use my treasured swords to deal with that guy." Seeing Lin Feng summon the 5 stone swords, the golem's eyes suddenly lit up. He stretched out his right hand and gently grabbed at the air. Then, Lin Feng's 5 stone swords instantly disappeared. When they reappeared, the 5 stone swords had already combined to form a huge sword, which was then grabbed by the golem. Actually, Lin Feng had many powerful treasures, but Lin Feng didn't lend them to the golem. It was mainly because Lin Feng felt that the golem would be able to erupt with the strongest fighting strength by using a stone sword. Lin Feng didn't know if this idea was correct or not. But looking at the golem's expression, Lin Feng felt that his guess was very likely correct. The golem wielded the stone sword and swept it towards the terrifying existence. Clang! After the 2 weapons collided, there was an earth-shaking sound of violent collision. Hearing this sound, everyone was shocked. Everyone was shocked. This sound was so loud that it seemed as though it was going to shatter the entire void. Damn it! The terrifying existence couldn't help but curse. His expression became extremely gloomy. He originally wanted to use the stone beheading sword to kill the golem, but who would have thought that Lin Feng would actually lend such a powerful treasure to the golem? The terrifying existence was very knowledgeable. He recognized Lin Feng's stone sword at a glance. It was rumored that the 36 stone swords could cause extremely powerful damage to creatures that had crossed eras. And not only was he an expert from the mastermind's world, but he was also a creature that had crossed eras. Therefore, the terrifying existence would also be suppressed by the stone swords. That terrifying cultivator hated Lin Feng to the core. In his opinion, Lin Feng was the cause of all this. He really wanted to kill Lin Feng and eat him, but now wasn't the right time to do so. At this time, his opponent was to him. Clang! 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 The attacks from both sides collided again and again. Every time they collided, there would be an earth-shattering sound. The golem who had the stone swords had a great increase in battle power. That terrifying existence was shaken to the point of retreating. He became extremely irritable. He kept roaring. This guy must be extremely aggrieved now, because he originally thought that he could dominate the world after being born. He could be awe-inspiring, but in reality, this guy, he was being suppressed more and more. This guy was one of the 36 demon generals under the mastermind's command. A high and mighty existence. A self-righteous existence. How could he tolerate being suppressed? In anger, the terrifying existence's body burned. As his body burned, his battle power began to increase greatly. His aura became more and more terrifying, and his battle power became more and more powerful. And the golem was not to be outdone. The golem's body turned into dense runes. Every rune. They all contained extremely terrifying power. After feeling the power contained in those runes, Lin Feng couldn't help but be shocked. Those runes were really terrifying. At this moment, Lin Feng saw it. The runes that the golem had turned into had all fused with the stone sword. Then, the stone sword slashed towards the terrifying existence with all its might. Clang! Accompanied by the sound of a violent collision, the 2 sides collided once again. Then, a shocking scene appeared. That terrifying existence was sent flying by the the force of the blow. The golem's methods were truly terrifying. Duzu said, "The golem and the stone sword are truly invincible." Lin Feng nodded and said, "That's right. It seems that the stone sword can only unleash its greatest power in the hands of the golem or the stone clan." Lin Feng's words weren't wrong. It was indeed, as Lin Feng had said, the stone sword was naturally compatible with the stone clan. Of course, when cultivators of other races activated the stone sword, they would also be able to unleash extraordinary power. However, compared to the power of the stone sword activated by the stone clan, it was much worse. The stone sword slashed out again and again. Clang, clang, clang. 3 consecutive slashes. Crack, crack. The sound of cracking could be heard. The stone-chopping sword actually broke apart. Seeing this scene, Lin Feng and the others were in high spirits. The stone sword continued to slash towards the terrifying existence. Who would have thought, at this moment, the terrifying existence actually turned around and ran? This guy wanted to escape. It seemed that these existences who thought themselves high and mighty, they didn't look like the kind of people who had a lot of backbone. Or else, he wouldn't have chosen to run away. Lin Feng naturally didn't want this guy to escape. He exchanged a glance with the cursed doll. Then, the two of them activated the Tao of Curses at the same time. They wanted to use the Tao of Curses to stop that guy. When the Tao of Curses was activated, Lin Feng and the cursed doll immediately used the Tao of Curses to attack the escaping guy. The escaping, terrifying existence let out a painful scream. His soul was caught off guard and was attacked by Lin Feng and the cursed doll. Although he was incomparably powerful, he still suffered quite a bit of damage. "You deserve to die." However, he recovered very quickly. The terrifying existence looked at Lin Feng and the cursed doll with monstrous killing intent. But at this moment, the stone sword attacked. A sword slashed towards the terrifying existence. The terrifying existence was shocked. He wanted to dodge, but it was too late. Poochie. A tearing sound could be heard. Blood splattered. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 5323. Ha ha ha, that guy's head has been cut off. The cursed doll laughed loudly. Why is it like this? Why is it like this? I'm going to kill you all. The terrifying existence's head was chopped off, but it still didn't die. Its head roared angrily and flew directly towards Lin Feng and the others. As for his body, he held the broken sword and charged towards the stone sword. Lin Feng immediately sneered. "We can't deal with your complete body, but now you only have a head left. Could it be that you think the 4 of us can't deal with a single head of yours? You're underestimating us too much." Lin Feng said, "Do it. Cut this guy's head in half." Lin Feng held the Era War Spear and took the lead to attack. "Look at my power." Lung Zi, she held 2 short swords and charged over. Duzu activated his evil blade. The evil sovereign sacred ancestor held a halberd in his hand. The 4 of them joined forces and fought against the terrifying existence's head. The terrifying existence's head exhaled like a sword. Waves of sword chi swept over. However, they were all blocked by Lin Feng and the others. This guy was indeed strong before. But now, there was only 1 head left. No matter how strong he was, there should be a limit, right? So, his defeat. It was all within reason. After a fierce battle, Lin Feng seized a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and pierced the terrifying existence's head with his spear. Then, Lin Feng's right hand suddenly shook. The terrifying existence's head exploded. Only the soul origin was left. On the other side, the stone sword cut the terrifying existence's body in half. Lin Feng refined the terrifying existence's body into a ball of origin. Following that, he divided the soul origin and the great Tao origin into four. Himself, Lung Zishi, Du Zhu, and the evil sovereign sacred ancestor each had one. As for the stone man, it didn't seem to have any intention of taking it. If he wanted it, he would have done it himself. Dense runes flew out from the stone sword. Then those runes turned into stone men. The stone sword split into 5 and flew towards Lin Feng. It was put away by Lin Feng. "Thank you for your help, Senior." Lin Feng and the others thanked the stoneman. If it wasn't for the stone man, it would have been really dangerous today. "There's no need to thank me. I should be the one thanking you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to come back to life." The stone man said, "Senior, what are your plans now?" Lin Feng asked. Actually, Lin Feng wanted to see if the stone man had any plans to go to Sin City. If the golem had such a plan, then Sin City would have no choice but to accept it. This was definitely a joyous occasion. The stone person replied, "I have something important to take care of." Hearing this, Lin Feng was a little disappointed. Lin Feng's plan to invite the stone man had failed. Therefore, he didn't say anything about it. "I'll send you off now," the stone man said. Lin Feng said, "Send the 3 of them off. I plan to go deeper and find Emperor Huang Tian." The stone man frowned. "It's too dangerous in the depths." Although Lung Zishi wasn't afraid of anything, after experiencing the terror of the barren sky ridge, she felt a little scared. In fact, there was a kind of creepy feeling in his heart. She said, "Don't go. Let's go together." Lin Feng said, "No, I have to go deeper and take a look." The stone man's hand flashed, and a piece of jade appeared. He said, "My life form is a little special. I can't go deeper, so I can't send you in. You'll have to rely on yourself. However, this jade talisman was refined by me. If you break it at a critical moment, you should be able to escape." When he heard this, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. If that was the case, then he would have no more worries. "Why don't we go with you?" Lung Zishi said. Du Zhu and the evil sovereign sacred ancestor also hurriedly nodded. Lin Feng said, "It's better if I go in myself. You guys follow Senior Stone Man and leave. Now that I have the treasure Senior Stone Man gave me, I don't have to worry about getting into trouble." "All right then." Lung Zishi nodded. They really didn't have to worry about Lin Feng's safety right now. There was only one jade talisman. If they went in together, they might drag Lin Feng down. "The deeper you go, the more dangerous it gets. Be careful," the stone man reminded him. "I will. Thank you for your reminder, Senior," Lin Feng said, following which the stone man brought Lung Zishi, Du Zhu, and the evil sovereign sacred ancestor away. As for Lin Feng, he continued to walk deeper. Now, although Lin Feng really wanted to refine that terrifying source to raise his cultivation, Lin Feng did not do so. This place was not a place to cultivate. Lin Feng did not even study the stone scriptures. Now was not the time to study the stone scriptures. At night, Lin Feng found a place to hide from the terrifying creatures in the desolate sky ridge. During the day, he hurried on his way. Sometimes, Lin Feng would also encounter some terrifying existences and be attacked by them. However, Lin Feng's methods were extraordinary, and in the end, he was able to avert danger one by one. Lin Feng went deep into the desolate sky ridge. He had already arrived at the 27th mountain range. In this area, it belonged to the central region of the desolate sky ridge. This place, it was also more dangerous. Terrifying creatures would often appear. One night, when Lin Feng was resting in the cave, a terrifying creature appeared where he was resting. That terrifying creature was covered in silver scales and looked like a centipede monster. Other than having thick limbs, its body was also covered in densely packed claws. When this existence appeared, Lin Feng's blood began to flow at an unprecedented speed. Lin Feng felt the aura of death. He hurriedly put on the stone robe. However, even with the stone robe, it seemed that he could not completely avoid the terrifying existence's senses. This terrifying existence was still searching for Lin Feng. Fortunately, there was a commotion in the distance that attracted this terrifying existence away. Only then did Lin Feng escape danger. At that time, Lin Feng was almost scared to death. However, the result was not bad. It felt good to be alive. At noon, the sun shone in. It was not easy to see the sun in the desolate sky ridge. This was the first time Lin Feng saw the sun since entering the desolate sky ridge. Lin Feng discovered that when the sun shone into the desolate sky ridge, some of the creatures in the desolate sky ridge did not come out. The creatures in the desolate sky ridge hated the sun. They preferred dark and cold environments. That afternoon, Lin Feng heard the sound of intense fighting in the forest ahead. End of chapter. Chapter 5324. Archean Dragonesque Elephant Art, currently in progress. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to obtain the latest update. Chapter 5325. When he heard the sound of fighting, Lin Feng's face couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. What kind of existence was fighting here? Lin Feng was very puzzled. He rushed towards the direction of the fighting sounds. Very quickly, Lin Feng arrived at that place. When Lin Feng arrived there, he immediately revealed a shocked expression. Lin Feng recognized the site of the battle in that area. It was none other than the old man and the girl named Xiao Yi from the Huangtian Emperor's bloodline. However, their current situation wasn't very good. They were besieged by 5 terrifying corpses. The old man sat cross-legged, healing his injuries. Therefore, the girl named Xiao Yi blocked the attacks of the 5 corpses alone. What she took out was a war flag. Her petite and thin body held the war flag in her hand. Every time she waved the war flag, endless killing intent would surge out from the war flag. The power of the war flag was absolutely terrifying and shocking. However, the 5 corpses were no small matter either. Although Xiao Yi relied on the power of the war flag to temporarily block the attacks of the 5 corpses. However, it was obvious that she wouldn't be able to hold on for long. She would probably be drowned by the attacks of the 5 corpses very soon. For Xiao Yi, the situation was naturally extremely bad. That old man's cultivation is so terrifying, but now he has suffered such serious injuries. What injured him? Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. He suddenly thought of the beast roar and the intense energy fluctuation that he had heard before. Lin Feng's heart couldn't help but tremble slightly. Could it be? Was the old man injured at that time? Seeing that Xiao Yi seemed to be unable to hold on any longer, Lin Feng didn't stop and quickly rushed out. "Little girl, it seems that you can't hold on any longer," Lin Feng said with a smile. Hearing Lin Feng's voice, Xiao Yi looked at Lin Feng. She heard Lin Feng use the word little girl to describe her. Obviously, Lin Feng should have recognized that she was a woman disguised as a man. Xiao Yi wanted to teach Lin Feng a lesson. However, she was still very happy to see Lin Feng here. She really couldn't hold on any longer. If Lin Feng could help her, perhaps he could escape from danger. If Lin Feng didn't help her, she and the ancestor, they might all die in this place. Xiao Yi, naturally, he didn't want to die here. "What are you waiting for? Come and help me," Xiao Yi said. Lin Feng said, "Why should I help? I'm not familiar with you." After hearing Lin Feng's words, Xiao Yi was so angry that her pretty face turned ashen, but after thinking about it, Lin Feng was indeed not familiar with her. Moreover, there were some unpleasantness before. Therefore, Lin Feng seemed to have no reason to attack. Lin Feng continued, "How about this? If you call me husband, I will help you. What do you think?" "You're shameless." Xiao Yi looked at Lin Feng angrily. Lin Feng said, "How am I shameless? This is called the goal of developing potential." "You're shameless," Xiao Yi said hatefully. Lin Feng also knew that Xiao Yi, who was only a little over 10 years old, had to call him husband. After all, at Xiao Yi's age, she probably hadn't been in contact with other men. Thinking about it carefully, Xiao Yi was such a heaven-defying person. Would an ordinary man be able to enter her eyes? Of course not. Therefore, the current Xiao Yi was still a pure girl, although Xiao Yi's temper was a bit bad. Moreover, Lin Feng didn't like that kind of arrogant and condescending attitude. However, there was one thing that he had to admit. Xiao Yi, this girl, she was really good-looking. She was still young. When her body was fully grown, she was absolutely devastatingly beautiful. Lin Feng felt that it would be interesting to teach Xiao Yi's arrogant and annoying personality a lesson. "How about this? Call me good brother, and I'll help you," Lin Feng said. "Don't even think about it." "Xiao," he said coldly. Lin Feng said, "Since you're so uncooperative, I'll be leaving." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng pretended to leave. Xiao Yi hurriedly said, "Don't go." Lin Feng stopped and said, "Is there anything else you need from me?" Xiao Yi bit her lips and said, "All right, I'll promise you. I'll call you good brother, and you'll help me deal with these Yin corpses." Actually, if there was a way, Xiao Yi wouldn't agree. Helpless. There was no other way now. He could only choose to agree to Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Hurry up and shout. You must use a soft girl's voice. I feel comfortable listening to it." Xiao Yi's pretty face was pink, and she shouted in a low voice, "Good brother." It had to be said that Xiao Yi's real voice was indeed soft. It was the voice of a soft girl. It was completely different from her personality. "Too soft. I didn't hear you clearly," Lin Feng said. Xiao Yi was so angry that she wanted to stomp her feet. She naturally knew that Lin Feng was doing this on purpose. Xiao Yi had always wanted to prove that she was stronger than anyone else. Now, in order to ask Lin Feng for help, she had no choice but to call Lin Feng good brother. This was something that Xiao Yi could not accept. Now that she had shouted it out, Lin Feng was making things difficult for her. Xiao Yi was angry, but Xiao Yi endured it. After dealing with the danger in front of her, she would teach this fellow a lesson. At this moment, Xiao Yi told herself in her heart that she would definitely teach Lin Feng a lesson. "Good brother." This time Xiao Yi's voice was much louder. "Good sister, I'm here to save the beauty. Don't worship brother. Brother is just a legend." Lin Feng laughed as he appeared. He didn't know why, but seeing Xiao Yi's expression of gnashing her teeth, it felt really good. "Little girl, aren't you arrogant? Now aren't you begging this young master to help you?" Lin Feng took out his 30 bamboo swords. At this time, the 36 bamboo swords could be effective. This was a treasure that Lin Feng had forged with the grand firmament purple thunder bamboo. It was the most young. It was specially used to restrain these evil ghosts. The Yin corpse was a kind of evil ghost. It was also restrained by Lin Feng's 36 bamboo swords. Under the control of Lin Feng, the 36 bamboo swords quickly arrived in front of the Yin corpses. At this time, a large amount of astral qi surged out from the bodies of the 5 Yin corpses. This was corpse astral qi. Its defensive power was very terrifying. This kind of corpse astral qi protected the 5 Yin corpses. But this corpse astral chi was not able to resist the attack of Lin Feng's 36 bamboo swords. The 36 bamboo swords instantly tore apart the corpse astral chi and then attacked the Yin corpses. The Yin corpses waved their claws at the 36 bamboo swords. Some of the bamboo swords were swept away by the sharp claws of the Yin corpses, but some of the bamboo swords killed the Yin corpses. A tearing sound was heard, and the Yin corpses' bodies were suddenly torn apart, deep enough to see the bones. This chapter ends. Chapter 53:26. The 36 bamboo swords were indeed very lethal to these Yin corpses. After seeing the tyrannical power of the 36 bamboo swords, Lin Feng only felt his spirit suddenly shake. Before, Lin Feng had spent a lot of energy to cultivate the Tai Shao purple thunder bamboo. Now, seeing that the Tai Shao purple thunder bamboo was successfully cultivated, the power of the 36 bamboo swords was actually so tyrannical. Lin Feng's heart was naturally filled with pride and excitement. This was a life source magic weapon that he cultivated and then forged. It was also Lin Feng's third life source magic weapon. You hurt us, you deserve to die. After these Yin corpses saw the wounds on their bodies, they couldn't help but roar in anger. It was indeed not an easy thing to hurt these Yin corpses, because these Yin corpses were too strong, especially their bodies. Their bodies were very tyrannical, as if they were invulnerable. Many top-grade magic weapons were also very difficult to break the defense of these Yin corpses' bodies. But the Tai Shao purple thunder bamboo could do this. These Yin corpses probably had never suffered such a big loss before. They abandoned Shao Yi and directly rushed towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked indifferent. With a move of his mind, the 36 bamboo swords once again slashed towards those Yin corpses. Lin Feng's 36 bamboo swords were very special. Although the 36 bamboo swords were made of bamboo, but their toughness was extremely strong. Even if it was a top-grade treasure, it could not destroy the 36 bamboo swords. Therefore, Lin Feng could safely use the 36 bamboo swords to deal with these Yin corpses. Even if these Yin corpses' attacks swept across the bamboo swords, Lin Feng was not worried at all. These Yin corpses wanted to destroy Lin Feng's bamboo swords. It was simply a fantasy. Puff, puff, puff. A series of tearing sounds came out again. Those Yin corpses were simply unable to completely block all the bamboo swords. There were always some bamboo swords that could attack those Yin corpses. So, those Yin corpses, they were constantly injured. There were more and more wounds on the Yin corpses, because the 36 bamboo swords were surrounded by the power of thunder and the power of the sun. Therefore, when the Yin corpse's body was torn open, a wound appeared. The power of thunder and the power of the sun would enter the Yin corpse's body through the wound. To the Yin corpses, this was extremely harmful. The Yin corpses' bodies could not withstand it, and their bodies began to explode from the inside. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. The 5 Yin corpses roared in horror. Now, these Yin corpses could not attack Lin Feng. It was already very difficult for him to even protect himself. Lin Feng wanted to kill these 5 Yin corpses in one go. But at that moment, Lin Feng sensed that his blood was flowing rapidly. His sudden inspiration ability began to operate on its own. This meant that there was danger. Lin Feng did not dare hesitate. He hurriedly used void travel to disappear from where he stood. The moment Lin Feng disappeared, a rotten corpse with a foul stench appeared at Lin Feng's original location. That existence launched a sneak attack on Lin Feng. Fortunately, Lin Feng sensed it in advance. Thus, he dodged the attack of that terrifying existence. Otherwise, he would have been in danger just now. At this time, the old man opened his eyes. His face was still very pale, and his injuries had not recovered. However, He had finally suppressed his injuries and regained his mobility. "Ancestor, are you all right?" Xiao Yi looked at the old man worriedly. The old man said, "I'm fine. You don't have to worry." Lin Feng appeared beside them. 36 bamboo swords floated around Lin Feng's body. "Thank you for your help, little friend." The old man cupped his fists and said, "Hee, if you want to thank me, then give me a few bottles of soul essence pills." Lin Feng said with a smile, the people of the world of cultivators cared more about face, so most people would not ask for things from others. But Lin Feng did not care about this. Lin Feng had always believed in one thing. That was to be able to obtain benefits. This was the real benefit. Everything else was nonsense. Lin Feng did not need the soul essence pills now. However, many of Lin Feng's friends, such as the cursed doll, Wu Liang Daoist, and others could use them. Lin Feng had many women. They could also use them. So, if there was a chance, Lin Feng would naturally want to get more soul essence pills. In case of emergencies. Greedy and perverted guy. "You don't look like a good person," Xiao Yi said hatefully. The old man knew that Xiao Yi and Lin Feng did not get along well, so he did not care about Xiao Yi's attitude. He smiled and said, "Of course, no problem. All of you can die." At this time, the rotten corpse shouted coldly. A large amount of light green gas surged out of its body. Sogu's website